Hey, what's going on, everybody? Good morning. If it's morning for you, I'm coming from the Eastern Standard Time, USA. So yeah, actually, Alastor and I think both are, and so it's morning for
Yep.
us, almost
Yeah, it
afternoon.
is.
Um, but yeah, good morning. Hello. Thanks for joining us. If you're live, thanks to everybody in the chat who's been patiently waiting. We've got a video that we're going to review. I kind of held off on doing this one. I skipped ahead and reviewed a couple. I try to review Tom's videos in order, unless I skip ones that I don't think really warrant any commentary from me. So I did last night. I did two of them, but this one's kind of special. And Alistair and I had both talked about this one a little bit, and he wanted to join in for the review of this one. So this one, Darth makes a friend and then quickly loses that friend, which is this is not the first time he's demonstrated that. The two links that I've got in the description, the first one is the Time Rabbit one that I'm going to be covering. The other one is from, oh, why do I always forget the username? I think it's Clubhouse Debates.
It is.
Yeah,
It's Clubhouse debates.
and I'm pretty sure on Clubhouse that user goes by the name That British Guy. I think that's his
I'm
name.
pretty sure too, because that British guy has that same icon.
Yeah, he's got the Squid Games guy. Anyway, so courtesy of him, if you want to see this entire thing in context, it's about an hour long. It's the first half hour builds up to about where this one starts. This is basically the second half of their conversation. This is just the second half hour. The first half hour, Eddie or Brutefax and Darth are getting along great, swimmingly. It's like, okay, I think these guys are crushing on each other a little bit. Like this is a match made in wherever. So I'm not going to say heaven because that's corny and gross. But Darth, as Darth tends to do, quickly, mutilates his little pet here because he could have had an ally, and then it becomes clear that Eddie might be a little bit more on the ball when it comes to philosophy than Darth, and so in an attempt to respectfully disagree with him, Darth instead drives Eddie nuts. So that's what we're going to be watching. Um, so usual rules apply. If anybody in the chat can't hear things that are going on, yell at me. Throw some stuff up there in the chat, and we'll do what I can to make sure I haven't accidentally muted stuff. Other than that, yell in the chat if you'd like to, if you need clarification or anything, if you'd like me to rewind, I will do that. If it's something that you want me to go back to, within reason. I can't take too many requests, otherwise I would never get through them. And Alistair, obviously, same rules apply for you if I'm playing it, because you don't have pause controls. Just yell when you want me to pause it if you want to jump in with a comment. So I think we're
Fair.
ready to go. Alistair, do you want to introduce yourself or anything? You've been on here before, but usually
I've been on here before a little bit. Agnostic atheist. I've messed around recently with Clubhouse and Discord. I've not really been more well known with covering much stuff. I usually stream games. I'm tempted to make a side channel to try to do little reviews myself, but I'm just a guy that has dealt with Darth in the past and find it amusing looking through all of the videos and the idiocy and joy that is watching Darth Dawkins Clown Show.
Exactly. I also want to point out Benghazi says Jeff is clearly racist because he's trying to steal the viewers from a black man. Don't say that, Benghazi. People believe that. Don't say that shit. Carlton, Benghazi is referring to Carlton Winston, who I like his channel. Carlton and I have had I interviewed him on my channel months ago. But yeah, he's currently live right now. He's been doing. It's mostly been Saturday mornings. I don't know if he does them on Sunday mornings too, but he does reaction videos to a guy named DeRoy Cruz, who's also something of a lulz cow. So if you're interested, Carlton Winston clearly is I think is as fixated on DeRoy as I am on Darth Dawkins and the whole Precept crew. DeRoy has a whole other bag of BS going on, and Carlton, it's pretty fun watching Carlton react to it. So if you're interested in those, definitely go watch those. And in fact, you can even just shut this off and go watch Carlton now. I don't mind. These Saturday ones, I don't expect a lot of views because I have no idea what people are doing. But if you're watching, watch us both at the same time. Yeah, it'll make you crazy.
I've also coined the nickname for Tone now of 2 Cube Tone. So
two cube tone, yeah, the two cubes. I forgot about that. Thank you for reminding me.
There's that story. Yeah, there is that story.
You got two cubes. Wait, you literally think that? Yeah, that's what you think, right? Like, no, two cubes. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, so
I feel like he's kind of like a
little
reinvent
fact
because
too.
all this time he's been running around with Tone Loc, which is like that's very 90s for you, Antonio. But yeah, I think it's time for him to rebrand with two cubes. So
I should ask him that in Clubhouse. I should just come up, and it's not me defending anything. It's just, have you ever thought of changing your name to Two Cube?
well, and then people will be like, two cube, is that like a portmanteau of Tupac and Ice Cube? And no, man, it's about the two cubes.
It's like, no, because when I tried to talk to him about reality, he said reality is two cubes, literally.
Tone. He's another gift that just keeps giving.
More on Clubhouse than anything. The others I kind of left Clubhouse. What I've noticed, yet he stays there a lot. Him with Enlightened and them.
Yeah, somebody was actually asking about that because they were like, well, wait, where the hell did that Enlightened one guy go? And I'm like, I don't know. But I think I did see him, like, he didn't start his own, but he was like in the list of people that had been in a Clubhouse room. But yeah, it seems like, I don't know where J. Robin went either. Did he follow Darth over into the politics server too?
I have no idea where J. Robin is. I've hardly seen him. And I don't know where Darth is because Darth, got pissy on Doobie's server. So, because you can't mute the Overlord.
Well, he's still been on there because I think Supreme Leader streams jumped. He's been doing. I don't say they happen every day, but it seems like almost every weekday at some point in the afternoon because I usually get a notification while I'm working. He goes live from his atheist help room. In fact, he's over there. He's there now. Well, there's an atheist helpline thing going on there now. I went in there to kind of take a look around. I'm suppressed, quote unquote. I'm not allowed to speak. I thought that was cute. But when I went in there, he wasn't there, but his buddy Barthology was there.
Oh yeah, Barth.
And that guy was just yelling and screaming at people for not getting the Trinity right when this guy was exactly getting the Trinity right. It's awful. I had to leave within like 2 minutes. It was me like Barth really bothers. Barth bothers me more than Darth. Like there's just something about like I can't take that much willful ignorance. It's just, it's one thing for Darth is wrong and thinks he's
Sorry. For me, Barth, it's basically just like whenever I was in a room and Barth was in there, everybody would be like, yeah, shut up, Barth. Like, shut up. We don't care. Because he just yells. So with JC Concrete, Concrete might be in PNR. I've not checked recently, but Concrete, if I remember correctly, is not like on good terms with Darth. Last I checked, Darth and Concrete don't like each other.
Yeah, I mean, there is that video where they kind of had their outs. Tom Rabbit had that. That was like 6 months ago, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So who knows?
I talked to him sometimes after that, so I'm pretty sure.
And I'd seen Concrete, I think, a couple of times on in Clubhouse once, but I don't know. Anyway, let me pull this one up. We'll embiggen the screen there and go into Cinematron mode.
You'll never hear the end from him again. Oh gosh.
This is from the rabbit hole. Enlightened said he was in the hospital recently. Maybe he caught Darthitis. I kind of wonder, remember that when he went live, I thought that he was coming from an institutional room because of the posters that, they were movies that everyone's seen and basically like, but they aren't the kinds of movies that you buy a poster for, except for maybe Jaws. But very few adult people would have Ghost and Jaws and E.T. hanging in a corner, hanging on the walls. It just seemed like, kind of stock decorations for an office or something. He
also made a video trying to debunk Tom Rabbit, being like, "Oh, I was saying sorry, not Satan," but I don't know. It still sounded like Satan, even when I had my eyes shut.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and I don't want to shame him for anything. Like if he's in the hospital for either mental health issues or physical issues, good for him. I hope he's getting the help that he needs.
Yeah, hopefully everything gets good.
Especially if it's mental health issues, given what we saw. Like he might be attracted to religion for reasons that have to do with him needing medication more than anything else.
Before we start this, I want to quickly say something. So he asked at one point, he's like, I don't know what masochist means. So I tried to give him a definition without being like, I was just saying it's pleasure. Like, it's not, deriving sexual pleasure, just pleasure. And then he got on this whole rant to me as a reply, being like, amen, kind of like how Jesus was stripped naked on the cross and got beatings and all this. Yep, I'd be just like Jesus here.
Wow.
I'm like, okay.
All right. Yeah. Wow. That's one of those. Yeah. You just start backing away.
I just comment
slowly.
back, and I'm like, I was just giving you the definition of the word. I did not ask for this.
Wow. Ben Ghazi, I do not. I know this is a dig at me. Is that Jeff's opinion on Bart Ehrman sure has changed? I don't know what you mean by that. That's a dig you'll have to explain. So, all right. Mickey D says, I wouldn't be surprised if it's. I wouldn't be either. In fact, I think he might have been in a little bit of in a helpful place when he was online before, and he was because there's something about him seems a little extra, like he needs to get off something that's making him that way, or he needs to get on something to help him not be that way. Either way,
the random just unmute giggle.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. He said he was in the ICU with issues relating to his sodium levels. He should probably not be sharing medical issues, but no, if that's the case, no, that could be serious. Hopefully hopefully he's okay. All right. Well, that would explain why he wasn't really active, because somebody was asking me just like a week ago or so, like, he's been gone for like a month, and I'm like, yeah, he has. So, well, all right. So here we go.
Issues are resolved later for him.
All right. So this is the video, people. We're gonna get this one started, and yeah, as usual, holler if you want me to pause.
Hey, Tom Rabbit. So you cannot have rational thought or rational conversation without employing what's traditionally called the laws of
okay
thought.
so they're indefeasible, but that doesn't get you to the establishment that it's there. It's just that you can't deny it without employing it.
This is okay. So at this point, like I'd mentioned at the beginning, so they're already starting to get to a point where it's starting to get a little contentious, because they're talking about. I think Darth has tried pushing back on something like the laws of logic, and Eddie is taking this kind of stance that, the reason that the laws of logic are used is because you end up employing them in order to negate them. He doesn't say it that quickly, or that cleanly, but it's essentially what he's getting to. And Darth seems to keep wanting to creep in this whole thing. Yeah. And Darth is sort of paraphrasing that here, but then Darth keeps wanting to slip in. Yeah, but the laws of logic don't matter unless there's the God that made them. Right? And for Darth, that's constant. It doesn't matter how epistemology works. He's fixated on the fact that the only way that you can know anything is if there's really a God that made the things that you really know about real. Otherwise, you couldn't know anything at all. That's like, no, that's not what's entailed. If that God wasn't there, there wouldn't be anything, including knowing about anything. Everything would be gone. But he's fixated on this, like, if epistemology breaks down, if ontology is not recognized or something. It's weird. It's just an odd take. But he's already starting to push back on Eddie on this, and that's how this starts.
Yeah, and right. You'll see eventually they'll actually get into some form of argument about epistemology and ontology and the differences between that. Mm-hmm. And you can sort of see both sides, like Darth just, as you mentioned, kind of like it's irrelevant whether you think you know things and you can try to reason with things. You need God at the end of the day. Eddie's just like, oh yeah, I agree, but, and then he kind of takes everybody else's side of, we need to, benefit of the doubt first to, sort of discuss stuff anyway and accept that they have these types of this ability to do logic to be able to have a conversation about God. So
yeah,
that's kind of where what I've noticed with this specifically is where the tension sort of starts coming, because again, it's starting small and then it will progress into it.
It's kind of screwed up, because at this point you can really see, like, because normally it seems like when Darth is using this argument against like skeptics, it seems like the implication is that he thinks that like atheists want to deny ontology and just focus on what's knowable, and Darth is like, no, you can't divorce epistemology from ontology, like that being its most charitable. But here he's talking with Eddie, and with Eddie he's sort of like trying to deliver the same kind of thing, like, yeah, you couldn't really know anything if there wasn't anything to actually know about, right? But that's not actually what he's doing. Like the more he does this, like the claim that Eddie's trying to make here is like, just because a thing is real doesn't mean you perceive it accurately, right? And Darth gets fixated on the fact like, no, the only reason that you can actually perceive anything is because it's actually real, because God makes the thing that you perceive possible and your perception of it possible. Like, fascinating. God's responsible for both ontology, that which exists, and epistemology, how we know about things. Cool. But it's pretty clear that our ability to know things is different than God's ability to know things. So I can perceive something incomplete or incorrectly, right? And that doesn't have any bearing on what the thing actually is. It only has a bearing on what my perception of that thing is. He seems to think that by making that distinction, you're somehow, I kind of wonder, I kind of think like you're being dismissive of ontology, or you're trying to deny it. Because he really gets worked up with this guy, and these guys are on the same team. So it's it's aggravating.
Right.
So I'm saying, from a Christian perspective, how would you defend that to an unbeliever?
Yeah, to an unbeliever, I would. So basically, I would take the elementary steps of, is it dependent on my mind? No. Is it dependent on your mind? No. Is it dependent on 10 minds together? No. It's true no matter whether I exist, 100 people exist, 1,000 people exist.
That's begging the question.
It's not begging the question.
I don't know where
You said the laws of logic are true. Based upon what?
No, it's okay. Yeah. So I would say that the laws of logic are required prescriptively, objectively, from my mind, your mind, 100 minds together, no minds, or any location in the universe. They still would hold as being this objective reality.
So what you're saying.
See, I always think that these guys like overcommit to that kind of thing. Like, whatever, because this is where I think even Eddie gets slippery with this difference between epistemology and ontology, right? Because for me, if I'm getting this right, the epistemological part, when dealing with like some sort of propositional logic and these kind of classical laws of logic, that the rule of identity, law of the excluded middle, that kind of stuff. The reason we end up doing that kind of stuff, or adhere to that kind of stuff, is that seems to be that is a description of the way humans think about the reality around us, right? If we cease to exist, the things that we were thinking about don't cease to be, but our ways of thinking about reality are gone. This idea that like, no, if he wanted to say what the laws of logic are describing don't cease to occur, I agree with that. But this idea that like he's sort of like getting into this weird realm where it seems like he's sort of like, he's got a foot on the description side and a foot on the prescription side of logic, and I don't really agree with that. What do you think?
Yeah, because the nature of knowledge, because epistemology is like more concerned with the nature of knowledge and how we know things. So without any mind, epistemology wouldn't really exist, but ontology would exist in a sense, because ontology deals more with the origin of things. So there is something that originates from things in general. So like if all of humanity were to be wiped out randomly, there's still an origin point for a thing, and that thing's still an origin point for something else. So from my perspective there, ontology would still exist, although the way that Eddie's phrasing it, it's more like, the laws of logic, and that when the laws of logic, what they describe would fit in the ontology, because the way those things work. So in a sense, on like what ontology is at its core and what the laws of logic are at their core, yes, they would exist, but the knowledge of those being given the name of laws of logic, right, and being connected along with knowledge in general would not. So in that scenario, to me personally, I'm with you on that, but also adding it, ontology would still be a thing, at least what ontology is describing, the nature of things, but epistemology would not, and crumble without having a mind to try to figure out how they know things.
Yeah. Yep. So yeah. Also, Guru Lady said something about my dad died of a sudden heart attack at our home after work. I would never wish that horror on anyone. Yeah. No, that is terrible. It doesn't sound like that maybe happened recently, but whether it did or didn't, condolences, Guru. Let's see.
Personally, I would like to see Darth slip on a banana peel and fall on his tailbone. But whether karma, God, or the universe will make sure Darth is whomped down a few pegs, hopefully soon.
Peter says, I may have missed it, but did you explain what Earth atheism is, or is that another failed attempt by praise to look intelligent? Peter, I gotta say, I don't know to what you refer.
What is
was
Earth
this something?
atheism?
Was this something that praise? If this is something that praise did recently, maybe we. I don't think we talked about this before. If Praise did a stream about that recently, I haven't watched anything from Praise in at least a couple of weeks.
I'm
So
confused now. What is Earth atheism?
Earth atheism, yeah.
What is that?
The belief that the Earth doesn't exist. Yeah, I don't know.
Yes, that doesn't exist. We live on Mars.
And he answered her. He answered Benghazi. My guess is as good as yours. So. Or is it that the Earth isn't a god? Yeah, maybe all apply. I'm not sure.
Earth atheism. That is interesting.
Yeah, Guru says Gavin and Praise have gotten really fiery, calling out erroneous theology the past few months. Yeah, I've heard about that. Praise has really adopted, like, he's attached himself to Smoky Saint like a pilot fish, and so now he's basically like his lieutenant in trying to weed out these fake, phony, fraud Christians. Which is like, look, hey, if you guys want to do an Inquisition, go right ahead. But
just make sure Darth is in there.
Yeah, make sure that you keep yourselves honest.
I mean, that's already the truth there, because if you've seen, I'm pretty sure you did do a review on it. There was literally where Darth was trying to force Praise to pick friends, and then Praise was like, "I pick Smokey over you."
Well, now I feel bad. I feel bad now because he points to the top of the video you're playing. Yeah, so this the Earth atheism and young Earth creationism are equally retarded. Oh, my apologies. I didn't even read.
Look at that.
I automatically filter out anything Praise writes. So yeah,
I feel like an idiot now. I'm not noticing that.
Is that his idea of like saying like science? Maybe Earth atheism is his Praise's way of saying science.
Maybe, because I'm looking up Earth atheism and I'm not seeing anything.
Well, because you'd have young Earth creationism, you'd have old Earth creationism, but with atheism, you wouldn't have young Earth or old Earth. You just have Earth. I think that's what he's actually trying to do.
I guess, but there's different, like, atheists, because it's just one part of a worldview. Because there's humanists and existentialists. Like, there's a bunch of different groups of people. So
yeah, you could have somebody who's skeptical about the theory of evolution, but still an atheist.
Yeah, so I guess you could see that there. I guess that's another random branch off of somebody who's atheist, but also is. I don't know.
But this is Praise smuggling in, because I'm sure that's what he's doing, right? You can't say young Earth. You could say a young Earth atheist and an old Earth atheist, but he's just saying Earth atheism because atheists just we're a monolith. We all agree with evolution. We're all naturalists. So yeah, no one would disagree there. It's like, I don't think you realize just how wacky people could get.
Obviously, you mean you. Remember, I don't exist, so I still love that. Like, if I ever talk to Darth again and like mean it, if it gets to a point, I might just say, like, if he starts questioning me, how do you know anything? I'm gonna be like, well, Darth, how do you know you're not crazy? You're talking to somebody that doesn't exist in your worldview. How do you know you're not talking to air?
Randolph says, filtering out anything that those crazy people write is probably a good strategy for preventing a mental prolapse. Thank you, Randolph, for coming to my aid. Yeah, see, there's a reason I was ignoring it, but I had forgotten, because I did notice that title in the longer video, because I was like, because when Clubhouse debates, that YouTube, that British guy, when he put it out, I'm like, where was this happening? I'm like, oh my God, this is one of Praise's. I'd forgotten that Praise was on Clubhouse. I mean, it just, ugh. And I should have realized, because Gavin is right there. Gavin's right there with him. So, all right, let's get back into this.
Yeah.
So the law of non-contradiction, and you tell me if you disagree, means that for all entities that exist, they cannot equal or coexist with their negation. So how do you know that somewhere in some place there can't be a true contradiction?
Right. Very good question, because I get asked this by dialetheists all the time. So
explain to everyone listening what that is.
Yeah,
most people aren't going to know what that is.
Yeah, dialetheist is one who believes that contradictions can exist based on like Russell's paradox, the liar's paradox. I think it's something like this sentence is false, or something like that. It is true that the sentence is false, so they would posit.
No, that the liar's paradox it's incoherent.
Right.
It
Well, that's what I
somewhat
absolutely, and that's the point I would take.
I like how Darth weighs in on the paradox. Well, no, it's just incoherent. So, okay, so it's not a paradox. Problem solved. Thanks, Darth. People have been puzzling over that one for a while, but Darth just comes in like, no, it's incoherent. So,
because the actual paradox itself, Eddie was partially correct with this. On this sentence, it's false. Which, if it is false, then it's true. But then it's true, it's not false, so that it's false, and it's a continuous loop of thought process there. So I just hear, oh, that's incoherent. Then I'm like, then people wouldn't be pondering this. It wouldn't be called a paradox. You're wrong, Darth.
Unless he wants to just say that anything that's paradoxical is incoherent. Which
he didn't even let Eddie finish either. Eddie was in the middle of explaining the No, you're wrong. That's incoherent.
That's just incoherent.
Get wrecked.
The fact that we can express in semantic form something does not mean that A and not A can exist at the exact same time in this exact same way. That is incoherent. There's no content there. I cannot exist and not exist at the same time. I can express that, but you cannot conceptualize me existing and not existing at the same time, because it's incoherent. There's no
So, but what I'm asking you, how are you going to defend the universality?
Yeah, that's what I was saying with the universality of it is you can't have rational thought or conversation without employing the laws of logic. And those laws don't depend on me existing. They don't depend.
Where'd you get the universal from?
Well, it is universal, because if it's
if you're going to say something's universal, where'd you get it from?
Well, it's universal because it has to be employed by everybody to have rational.
No. Universal. It may be indefeasible, but if you're going to say that anything is universal, how so? Are you and I'm just doing this as a thought experiment. I don't doubt the universality of the laws of logic, okay? But if you're going to affirm the universality of anything, are you establishing it by your experience, or are you establishing it by pure reason? Are you defining it into existence? Are you saying it's universally true because it's indefeasible, because you would have to affirm it in order to deny it?
Well, yeah, no. So I would say it's universal because it must be employed by every single person.
Yeah, I don't really think I disagree with Eddie there. Like in that definition of universal, I think maybe Darth is trying to like stretch this into something different, because he'll sometimes use universal as a descriptor for his God in the same way that he uses ultimate.
Yeah, it seems like he might be trying to go along the lines of like, because if you go by Darth's definition, it might sort of come off as with talking like with the laws of logic and how, Eddie's basically been talking about, we need to employ these. They're universal. We need to talk we need to use these to understand everything and understand that, we're not using these or we are, yada, yada, yada. Darth is, I think I'm kind of with you there in the sense of Darth is probably trying to maybe use universal as ultimate. So it's kind of like, oh, so what you're saying is the laws of logic are ultimate or something like that. And it's like, that's not what I'm saying.
Right, and they could be ultimate in the sense that, because Eddie has already said this. Like, he believes that ultimately, at the end of the day, everything exists because of God.
Ontologically, the ontological answer is God.
Yeah, but in the case of epistemology, when he's talking about like laws of logic, they're universal because everyone ends up in the same place. In that kind of thinking, that's what you. It's one of those kind of classic things. We can acknowledge our subjective experience, even if we haven't solved the problem of hard solipsism, because in denying our subjective experience, we are affirming our subjective experience. It's sort of like the cogito, which, if you take it to be more intuitive, it's less translated, I think, therefore I am. It's more like when I'm thinking, I am, right? Because when you're thinking about yourself, if you attempt to doubt that you're thinking, you had to think to doubt that you're thinking.
You have to think that you're not thinking. Yeah.
Right. So it's in those like, now maybe that breaks down in moments where you're not questioning it. Like there's more to it than that. But actually, Cosmic Skeptic does a great video on this where he's talking about some of the newer writings on this, where they were like, if that idea was taken to be something more intuitive rather than being some kind of like logical thing, then it probably makes a little bit more sense. I think it's a little bit more influential in terms of this, but it's no different than what I think Eddie's saying here. It's one of those things that you can't epistemologically escape, and that's what makes it universal. It doesn't matter that it's about something that actually exists. It's about the way human minds work. And old Darthy Poo here thinks to this, and this is again where he's doing this kind of thing. It's like if Eddie's saying like, well, this is kind of what's happening in these are universals that happen in epistemology. Darth seems to think that by doing that and not also talking about what's happening in ontology, Eddie is being somehow dismissive of it or disrespectful of God's ultimacy or something like. And he starts getting more and more turned up about this. Like it's a really odd reaction. Let me start this up again.
So then you're just doing it by pure reason, but your human reason doesn't impose anything that's universal.
Absolutely.
You're just claiming it's a necessity for intelligent discourse. Okay, so what? That the fact that it's a necessity doesn't mean that it's true.
Well,
so I'm asking. Okay, if I said,
okay, maybe, but this is coming from a guy who who believes in a necessary God. So I think this is kind of strange.
That would be a nice thing to fire back at Darth. Darth being like, like God is the necessary precondition of all facts and logic, and then you're just like, just because it's necessary doesn't mean it's true. You just like play the clip with Darth talking that specific line back at him.
And his only defense, I mean, to be completely charitable to him,
his
here,
own words.
Well, if he's now making the distinction. If he's making the distinction that, okay, when we talk about something being necessary like a God, we're talking about ontology. But when you're talking about something being a universal, like some kind of something about logic that represents a kind of a kind of de facto place where the human mind goes, and it sort of deals with, A or not A, and those kinds of laws of logic. If those are somehow necessary because and they're universal, they end up getting employed by everybody. That's not necessary. So it seems like this is like the first time I've noticed that Darth is making a distinction between epistemology and ontology in the sense that ontologically he believes in this God that exists and couldn't not exist and all the stuff that comes with that. But when it comes to epistemology, it's like just because that happens to be the way people think about it isn't necessary. It's not necessarily the case.
Yeah, like, but then he'll go back and kind of be like ontology and epistemology are hand in hand fully. So it's kind of interesting there.
Yeah.
He'll just go back to that.
Rams, Eddie is a friend of mine. If you'd like to have him on your show at some point, I'd be happy to introduce you. He's a smart guy, and I'm glad to see him talking with Darth. Yeah, I think Eddie kind of, I mean, by the time we get to the end of this, Eddie clearly regretted talking to Darth. And this is the first.
Eddie at some point.
Yeah, I think this is the first time they had this was like their first chance to have a back and forth. I think they might have run across each other in Clubhouse, but this was their opportunity here in Praise's room to kind of, have this conversation. And again, people, if you watch the one from Clubhouse, I've got the link in there. The first half hour of this, they basically agree on everything. It's only when they get to the second half of that video, which is what Tom's highlighting here, where things take this turn. And Eddie does seem to be a lot better grounded in terms of and he mentions that in the first half where he kind of approaches religion from a philosophy of religion stance. He seems to have a better grasp on some of these concepts than Darth. And at this point, these guys are already starting to talk past each other. But Darth doesn't see that because Darth's just going to insist that anybody who's not it's really fucked up. They're not even really disagreeing. This doesn't do anything. This doesn't do anything really against Darth's some of his core arguments about God being absolute and being essential to the existence of everything. Yeah, the only thing it does.
Multiple times, I agree to that. He just has an issue with how Darth is trying to format things, and Darth is sort of coming at him. I'm big, powerful Darth. I crush atheists on a daily basis, just 50 every hour. How would you crush atheists? And the guy's just like, I wouldn't crush them. I'd have a conversation with them and see if I can get them to, drop what they believe and believe what I believe. I don't go for the kill type of thing. No, how will you go for the kill? So yeah. It's kind of like Darth is kind of slightly using an interrogation, kind of like how if he would with atheists, but it's more like interrogating. Let's see if your approach on dealing with atheists is as good as mine.
Yeah, there's a little bit of flex, and that becomes more prevalent as this goes on. So, all right, here we go.
Everything is composed of atoms, right? I'm making a universal, right?
Yes.
All right. So if you're gonna declare anything that's a universal, then the question is, where do you get this? Because I get unbelievers who make statements of universality, and I'll say, okay, where'd you get that? Did you get that from your experience? Did you get it through induction? Are you invoking the law of non-contradiction because of induction?
Well, actually, you're making the same mistake I was talking about earlier. The fact that something is true, it does not. How I know it is true has no bearing on the ontology of it.
Okay, so, but I'm asking you. How is it the case that it ontologically is universal?
Well, that's just it. So we establish it's universal because we would almost most rational people would agree that the three laws of thought are required for universal.
That is just an appeal to consensus.
No. Hold on, wait a minute. Let me finish. So everybody, here's the issue, and I'm gonna show you the flip here, which is the problem. So everybody must agree that the basic three laws of thought, the three laws of logic, are required for rational thought and rational conversation. Now, if they deny that, then they're a pluralist. If they're a pluralist, then anything goes, and there's no sense in having a conversation with them because you can't have rational conversation, because they will say, oh yeah, contradictions can exist. And so I would retort with, okay, well, you're right and you're wrong at the same time in the same way. And they would come back and say, no, wait a minute. No, it's so you're just
I agree partly of what you're saying, but basically you're just arguing because it's indefeasible, therefore universally is true. But
no, it's universal. Well, that's why I was talking about the importance of prescriptiveness. It must be prescribed.
Okay. All right. Let me ask you this question.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it then when we invoke the law of non-contradiction, and the reason why it's called a law, because it's universal, invariant, and absolute, it applies to every discrete entity and discrete state of affairs?
I feel like he might be larding that up a little bit there. Like he might be putting more on logic than he needs to. Maybe not, but
I'm just trying to think about that because I heard that. I'm like, that does not sound fully right, but I could be wrong.
it just seems like it seems so extra to what it is. Like it's just
Yeah, that's the thing. It seems like he's like adding on more to it.
And it always seems like the more I listen to this and the more I ponder the way he's talking about this, when he starts like using all those qualifiers for something like a law of logic, it seems like to me he's like almost trying to pull it out of the realm of epistemology and make it into some kind of ontological thing, that has to be engaged with, in a way. Like and I don't think that's what he's doing, but it sounds like what he's doing. Because he does it with so many other things. Like the more words I use to describe a thing, the harder it will be for you to tell me that it's not there. He does it in the newest video that just came out. I haven't watched it all, but I was watching a little
either.
Yeah,
So
it's pretty funny because he's debating a guy that has like changed his voice intentionally. Like he and another guy are talking about it before he starts talking with Darth.
I've not watched that yet because I went to bed early, then I woke up and I saw that was there, and I'm like, oh well, I'm coming on to here first, so that's probably something I'll watch later.
Yeah. So I haven't seen how it wraps up because there's something that I kind of want to do a little bit of reading before I review that one on it. Because they seem to be getting into kind of a modal logic kind of discussion, and the avenues that Darth's taking him down aren't working for me. So I kind of want to get into that later.
So in other words, it's an interesting watch then.
Definitely give it I only made it. I don't even think I made it halfway through, but I'm interested to see where it's going to go. But even in that one, he sort of does the same thing where he's getting to a point in the explanation, and that's where I had to stop it, where it sounds like the more like he does with his premise, when he was kind of caught affirming the consequent, he thought that he could fix everything by simply building in more stuff into either premise 1 or premise 2, and that would somehow get rid of it. He's like, well, if I just say that the street is wet because for no other reason other than it rained, then that fixes the structure. It's like, no, it doesn't. That's just you're literally just asserting something that's true. Like he couldn't. Like it was at that point that anybody can realize, like he thinks that just asserting something in an argument, as long as the argument holds, then any of the assertions made in it also must follow. And he kind of does the same thing with this other guy later.
It didn't work, so then he kept rewording it slightly different, and people are like, "That's the same argument." It's the same argument.
Yeah, and I kind of feel
Clubhouse debates. It's a hoot. That video, like he's just like, for those who haven't watched it, it's hilarious.
All right, here we go.
Mm-hmm.
So, on what basis? How is it that every state of affairs conforms to this?
Well, it's the issue is when you're asking why is the law of non-contradiction universal? One, like you said, you're affirming it already by having a rational conversation and asking questions.
No, I'm asking you to give me why it's ontologically true.
Oh, no. Okay, so that's what I was saying. Ontology is a whole separate can of worms than what epistemology is. So once you can establish it's universal and show them it's universal, then they must have an ontology to account for that universal.
I'm asking you to explain to me, how is it that every meteor within the time-space continuum, every single instance of it, the law of non-contradiction applies? How is that ontology true?
Well, the ontology would be the explanation of how it can exist objectively and universally. So they would have to.
And Nick Swati says that you can deny the universality of classical laws of logic. One could argue that you can demonstrate their applications and limitations in evaluating the relations of particular types of facts. Yeah, I think that sounds right to me. But in this case, I guess I don't understand exactly where these guys where Eddie and Darth are at loggerheads on this. Like I really don't, because Eddie just kind of came back and said once you get them to accept these universals, like, A equals A can't not be A, whatever. Then once you get them to accept these universals in an epistemological sense, then you have to get them into a point where you start talking about what accounts for the existence of those universals ontologically. And that part, I think, I think things get a little shaky for me. Maybe that's not what Eddie's saying there, but
yeah, that's past talking. That
yeah,
I've noticed there, because Eddie's being like, yeah, I agree with you. At the end of the day, ontologically, it will be God. But you're asking me how I would approach somebody who's a non-believer. And so he's being like, first I'll lay the groundworks to we can agree that these are things, and this is sound epistemologically. So then now that we've established that from an epistemological standpoint, now we can go into the ontology of things, because to have these thoughts, you'd have to have eventually some type of origin point, some ultimate sort of truth in a sense. So he's like, I'll do this step by step, take him through. He even mentioned like a little like elementary course, sort of like introduction to one thing, and basically try to get people to agree on one page and then go to the ontology. And the Darth is just like, yeah, but the ontology.
Yeah, right.
Like Darth is just like, the ontology is what matters at the end of the day. So, just at the end, that's why the atheists are wrong.
Yeah.
And then Eddie is again being like, I agree with you, but we need to first establish things epistemologically before we go into that argument.
Yeah, and I think to give to Nick's comment here again, which, by the way, I believe Nick also goes by the name No Direction, which I know him as Nicola, but that first sentence, you can deny the universality of classical laws of logic. I think somebody like Darth would say you can't. Maybe even Eddie would say you can't. Like you can't.
I can see Darth saying no to that sentence.
And I'm
not sure, but Darth, yeah.
Yeah, with Eddie, it could be up in there. So, as far as the second part, one could argue that you can demonstrate their applications and limitations in evaluating the relations of particular types of facts. I guess I would have to get a better explanation of the types of facts to see that broken down, because I definitely wouldn't take it that way, because I'm not that well versed in things. I just think at this point, the only thing I can comment on between Darth and Eddie is I think that they've been talking past each other, because Darth just keeps insisting on but the ontology.
Yeah,
and
but
ontology. Eddie's trying to be like, yeah, I know the ontology is important, but I'm talking about epistemology first. Yeah,
you have to first establish things like epistemological things before you get on to the ontology, because it's just sort of like there's the question of like how we know things and what is fact. We have to get into how we know that things are the way they are, or at least appear to be, and then we'll get into the actuality of everything, and why in this case the theist epistemology is grounded, while the atheist isn't in this case, because Eddie's talking as if he's talking to a non-believer. Because that's what Darth asked him, how would you approach a non-believer? So
yep. Okay, here we go.
You're not giving a biblical answer. You're giving a defense by reason. Do you want to know what the biblical answer is?
Well, hold on a second, but you're asking.
I think that's interesting, because he's saying like, oh no, you're giving a defense by reason. But Darth's whole claim, his whole apologetic, seems to be that one has to use one's reason to rationally conclude that the only acceptable conclusion about reality, the nature of this world, is that there is the Christian God is real, and that you have to drop to your knees in supplication, begging for His mercy. So
that's always very weird to me, because he keeps swapping between a Christian God and a very bare minimum creator God.
Yeah, but also on top of that, it's like, okay, so like he's condemning it. He's like almost getting to the point where he's condemning Eddie for trying to rationalize a conclusion about God, which is almost entirely Darth's shtick. As if Eddie, the implication is that Eddie's sort of dismissing faith or grace, the work of the Holy Spirit, but Darth dismisses those things all the time. if Darth just appealed to faith, he wouldn't need to do 98% of the stuff he's talking about. He could just say, well, Christians have faith. He could appeal to something supernatural. God reveals it to our souls in a way that only the Holy Spirit can understand. It's an act of grace. It's not entirely something that we can explain with our rationality, because it's not part of this, this earthly realm or whatever. There's all sorts of different ways to get out of that theologically, and just hell, you can just imagine a God where that's the communication method. It's not hard. So when he says this at this point, like, oh, you're just defending him from pure rationality, like, well, I haven't heard Darth say anything other than you need to accept the fact that you can't make rational sense of the world around you without invoking the Christian God, because all facts are dependent upon that Christian God. So as soon as you realize that, which is just an assertion, but you're supposed to rationally conclude that that's inevitable, and then from there reasonably conclude that what you need to do is beg God for forgiveness and pursue Jesus Christ. Like, none of that tracks. Like, you're literally telling people that they can think their way to God. This is salvation, salvation through an act of logic.
Yeah, but remember, you have to look at everything biblically. You cannot use reason. Darth has told that he, look at everything biblically, which again is ironic to me, because Darth does not take a proper biblical stance unless if he's forced into that, and he picks specific parts that benefit him. Like, if someone's you're being unchristian, of course he'd use the, Jesus called the false prophets, it was something. It's like rotting corpses in a whitewashed tomb. So he'll use stuff specifically to be like, oh yeah, everything I'm doing is okay and you're wrong. But at the end of the day, it seems to me that he doesn't want you to accept the Christian God. Overall, he wants you to accept a God concept and then deposit the Christian God there. His end goal is, okay, fine, you accept that there's a creator. Now it's only the Christian God, I win. The Christian God's just used as having a God to deposit in, and it's the God that Darth likes. Darth likes the idea of Jesus and God in fire, brimstone, hell. So first it's the whole accept that there's a God, and now that God is Jesus. Boom, you're now Christian. I win. Get crushed, atheist.
Yeah, get wrecked, atheist. Yeah, it's sort of the thing, like, Hitchens can gag on all of me, says Darth Dawkins, because unlike what Hitchens said, we're like, yeah, you can make these kinds of arguments and get to deism. You can get to the conclusion that there's some kind of classical God of deism, or maybe even it's but you can't get to this personal God of theism definition. There's a huge gap there you haven't crossed. You can't demonstrate either, but you certainly can't demonstrate the personal God, and you can't even really make a convincing argument for it. You can just make assertions about it.
Yeah, Darth can make somewhat interesting arguments for just, again, his favorite thing, a necessary mind that created everything and is the fundamental thing of all logic, what dictates what is, can, will be, blah blah blah. But god dang, going on the little Darth rant made me lose my train of thought.
It could do that. Yeah, you can get derailed.
Darth made me lose my train of thought, but I'll try to quickly get back onto it. Basically, with that is the best case that Darth's normal thing that I think he could be good at is creating deists or just theists that believe some God. But getting to the Christian God, if you actually try to nail Darth and get Darth to talk to you about his beliefs in the Christian God, he fails.
Yeah.
So, he's decent at arguing for the overall concept of a God, but not the God that he's saying he worships and believes is real. Kind of like how the Kalam can open the idea to, okay, there is something that created everything, but that doesn't mean it's God.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and I think that's usually the one where I think that's oftentimes the one that Hitchens would kind of reject too. Like, okay, so you've proven that there must have been a first cause. Awesome.
Yeah.
How did you prove that it was a personal being that has this redemption story in mind for all of creation?
Its presence to everyone, yet there's still some people that are confused about it and some people that reject it fully. But it's revealed itself to everybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
and it
Yeah.
loves you, and it wants what's best for you.
But it allows a lot of suffering in the world because that builds character. It's not that he's evil. You just need to suffer a little bit in this world so that you run to
Yeah, you need to
him.
prove that you're good, that you're
Right.
willing to give yourself to him and wash away all your sins in
I don't-
this sin-filled world to have a afterlife of living forever and praising him nonstop.
And I don't know if I brought this up in my criticism of that particular video. He was talking to Thurley about the problem of suffering. One of the things that I thought was interesting, he made this claim that it's necessary for suffering to be there because people, that's what draws people to God. People, otherwise they would just get complacent, and that's what happened to these people before the flood. First of all, there's nothing in the Bible to indicate that any of those people were suffering any less than humans do now. It was just, there's a part in Genesis 6 where it says God limits the lives of humans to like 120 years or something like that. But there's nothing to indicate that like any of the stuff that happened following being Adam and Eve being kicked out of the Garden of Eden, that we're not suffering anymore. But it's he needed to flood everybody, and like, okay, so they got complacent and they just did evil all the time because things were so easy for them. So then he floods them, and then things get harder for them. Where does it say in the Bible that things got even harder for humans to keep them on the straight and narrow, to remind them they need to go to God? And here's the thing: if all you have are like essentially like sorry, I don't want to straw man them. You permit suffering in a world to make sure that people come to you in supplication, begging for mercy. They're just looking for relief from pain. You're just a pusher man at that point. Wouldn't it be better if you created an earthly paradise, and then the people that stick with you, despite the fact they've got every need and every want taken care of, they still seek a relationship with you? Isn't that a more honest relationship? Aren't those the ones that are truly freely choosing you?
In that video, he hits the person Tarsus is talking to. I think you said it was Thurley. Sort of, I'm pretty sure if I remember correctly, kind of slightly nails that of like, wouldn't it be better to reward the people, instead of making them only worship you because they're scared for their afterlife?
Yeah.
Like, oh no, I have to live forever and be tortured forever in a place that people can't decide whether it's freezing cold or burning hot. Yes,
remember
the actual depiction of hell.
Remember, there were no babies on Earth at the time of the flood. Yes, thank you, Anthony, for not allowing me to forget that. I will never forget it, but thank you for.
How bad of a punishment is it to kick Adam and Eve out of the Garden of Eden if at the end, they ended up like their descendants ended up being happy outside of the Garden of Eden to the point where they were complacent and sinned all the time. Like this is supposed to be this paradise, but then it kicks out, and then it's like, oh no, the people are sinning and they're complacent and they're happy and they don't care anymore about me, so they're sinning, they're doing whatever the hell they want. Time to flood them. It's like, okay, so the Garden of Eden was not really fully needed because people were fine after they were kicked out.
And well, here's the thing too.
I'm sorry if what's strawmanning, but it just does not make sense to me.
Well, if what's informing Darth's position on this is the fact that everyone is doing evil all the time except for Noah and his family, so it must have had it easy going. It must have been because they all became complacent, and the only person that still gave a damn about God and being righteous was Noah, and therefore by extension, he and his family are basically allowed to be saved, and everybody else has to get flushed. Okay, so you had a creation. You created people, right? And they disobeyed you. And then you curse them. Then you drive them out. And then now they are growing up and multiplying into the curse that you placed them under. And you're surprised that they're not? Like, now, what Darth seems to be neglecting here is the fact that everyone is under the curse. Everyone is under original sin following Adam and Eve's banishment from Eden, but he seems to be acting as though no, the way people were kind of like getting along there, they're just getting complacent and everything's good, and yet we're supposed to entertain the possibility that they also might be sterile. Like, okay, if everything is good and no one can have kids, how much suffering do you think is happening because no one can procreate? Like, people are going to start getting nervous that they're going to go extinct. No one can have a baby anymore, Darth. So you've created a scenario that contradicts the other scenario that you need to support this, to get out of a problem of suffering kind of thing.
in the Bible, you had mentioned that yourself, which I found entertaining because somebody I think mentioned it to you there, and like the Nephilim were existing still at that time. Women were having children with angels, so
Right.
they were
Exactly.
still children.
Yeah, exactly. All right, I'm going to play this.
Yep.
Being, you know, a question of epistemology versus metaphysics.
Wait a
So,
minute. Do you agree with the term that I gave you earlier, the principium ascendia? God is the ground of all being.
right. Well, that's what I'm getting to.
Okay, then whatever is invoked that is not God will have to derive and depend upon God. So the law of non-contradiction,
like evil or Satan, those kinds of things. Sorry, cheap shot.
applies to everything within creation, because creation is a revelatory action of God and reflects God. So the law of non-contradiction is universal, okay? Because everything is created by God and reflects God. That's how we can establish the universality biblically. But you didn't say that.
Well, hold on, wait a minute. But that's the thing, is we're actually going to the same destination.
No, but you didn't say that the law of non-contradiction is universal, because every state of affairs is a revelatory action of God, and everything reflects God. God is the epitome of the principle of identity and the principle of non-contradiction. That's why everything that he creates reflects that.
But that's what I was getting to. The ontology of
you spent 20 minutes and you never mentioned God once.
Right, because you kept questioning me about universals. So we have to establish universals exist and what they are, which is epistemology.
How could they exist if they were not instituted and secured by God?
Right there, you're making the categorical error I was talking about earlier. When you establish that universals exist and what they are, that's epistemology. Now, when we talk about how they can exist, that's ontology, which is where God comes in.
When you say what things are, that's ontology.
No, that's not. Ontology is how things exist. What is the existence of things? Why do they?
It's at properties and attributes.
Right. So you kept.
So that's what something is.
I don't know that that's actually true. I think Darth is actually conflating ontology with metaphysics. Like things about attributes and stuff like that. If you get into metaphysical discussions about things, you start talking about how it is that things exist. But ontology is what exists, right? It's the study of existence and the stuff in it, you know. And epistemology is the study of how we know things. The idea of like properties and attributes of the things that exist, to me, seems like that's more in the and I don't want to divide them up unnecessarily, but that always seems to me to be a discussion that happens within metaphysics when you start talking about like the redness of apples or the squareness of a table or the flatness of a table surface or things like that.
Or the fact that apples are truth.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But I don't. I mean, honestly,
I need that on a fucking t-shirt. I really need that on a t-shirt.
Who said that?
I need to go to a
was
t-shirt.
That Darth?
It was Tone.
From apples are truth.
The conversation, like he kept going. He's like, so an apple is truth, when he was trying to nail me with the truth stuff, and I'm like, no. What the truth is a property of things. It's a conglomeration of all of the traits that what we would define as an apple. Like, if a thing has the same traits of what an apple would have, it's an apple. But an apple itself is not truth. The truth of the apple is that's what it is. But yeah, I want that on a shirt. I should probably get just a white shirt. Just have a picture of an apple. Just above it, an apple. And then below it is truth.
Apple is truth. Yeah, people would be like, wow, you're really into into Mac products. Huh? I'm like, no, not that kind of apple. I'm talking about the fruit.
I'm talking about the actual apple.
Like...
but yeah, ontology is.
But what about
I've been trying to. No, the classes of appleness. Exactly. I need to ask Tone about that at some point. What are the different stages? But ontology, because I've been trying to look at this a little bit more since this video is coming up. It is what sort of things exist. So
Yeah.
that is basically the definition of it. The what sort of things exist in the world and assumptions about the form and nature of reality.
Yeah, and I think you would get into properties and attributes, but it just seemed kind of weird that well, no, that's what ontology is. Like, ontology is about existence.
It's not.
You know,
if anything, that would be a small subcategory of ontology at best, if you want to connect it to ontology. Because the properties of something is not the fact that the thing exists. So it's because, again, ontology is just what does exist. Well, yeah.
Here we go.
There are.
Well, you kept asking me epistemological questions, and that's why I was getting to the establishment epistemology.
And I like the implication here. I didn't touch on that. The implication was from earlier. Remember, Darth told Eddie that he had been talking for 20 minutes and didn't talk about God, as if when Eddie's talking about universals or any of this other stuff, because he hadn't mentioned God every other 30 seconds or so while he was doing that, he's somehow denying God.
He's getting there.
And he already prefaced this by saying, yeah, God's absolutely necessary for all this stuff. He already started there. That was the beginning of this video. And Darth's like, well, you talked for 20 minutes and you didn't mention God once. Like, what the fuck, Darth? Like, you can't track a conversation for 20 minutes? Like, oh, this guy's been talking about universals, and now I think this guy might just worship universals. Like, you hysterical nitwit. Focus on what this person's telling you. Maybe you'll learn something.
Yeah, also, Alex, you got it wrong. According to Darth, the premise you got wrong. It's not if apples exist, there will be truth. Truth, therefore, Q. It's if apples exist. No, I think you got that correct then with Darth. I'm trying to think. You got it wrong because it's if apples exist, there will be truth. Truth, therefore, apples, or something like that.
If apples exist, there will be truth. Premise 2, X. Therefore X.
If X, then Q, X. If apples exist, there will be truth. Apples.
I think Alex has done a good job. I think we can see this formulation coming from Darth in the future.
I'm trying to. I'm like, I think they got it wrong, but I'm like, you know what that might be. I'd have to rewatch Darth's formulation.
No,
of stuff,
it's just an illustration of how wrong Darth could get it. Like he could go wrong in a couple different ways there. I like Alex's. That works. I mean, it works in that. Okay, it's a train wreck.
That works. It would be therefore P then instead of P therefore Q. It would be instead of therefore. Oh no, he's saying if P then Q, Q's therefore Q. Oh God.
Yeah, he's intentionally driving that car.
Oh God, that's even worse than Darth's normal.
But I wouldn't put it past Darth. He can live up to Alex's expectations. I have faith that Darth can do it. I like this one. Cogito ergo fructus. I think therefore apples are truth. Boom. Yeah, that's good.
I should have that beer. I'm no longer agnostic or an atheist. I'm an appleist.
Yeah,
apple theist. I believe.
Could you say fructist? I don't know how to like derivate that word from Latin into like what a fructist. Yeah.
The Principia ad appellatus.
Q implies Q, therefore Q. What's circular? That's not circular. You're right.
Exactly.
Yeah. Thank you, Alex. Here we go.
And then the ontology of
it. You need epistemology. You need epistemology to ground ontology, and vice versa. They're reciprocal. But the point I'm trying to make to you is ontology, epistemology. You need epistemology. You need epistemology. You need epistemology to ground ontology, and vice
versa. You can't have them ground each other. What on earth?
You see why I wanted to watch this, because I heard this and I'm like, excuse me? Like, and I was with Eddie there. I'm like, no, you're wrong. That's not how that works.
Holy shit. Like, and here, and all this time I've been actually, like, not steel manning because I've been getting it wrong, but I've been attributing a stronger argument for Darth when I'm saying he's saying that an ontology is the grounding for epistemology, which I didn't think was entirely I mean, I think there's something problematic about approaching it that way, but it's not necessarily, like completely wrong. But now he's saying like, no, ontology grounds epistemology and vice versa. Like, what? How does what we
grounds ontology and vice versa is what he said.
so it's like, okay, so we know it exists because we think it exists, but we think it exists because we know it exists. Like, okay, at that point, he believes in a kind of dialetheism of reality. The paradox, the liar's paradox, seems to be kind of close to his idea of like that which exists and what we know about that which exists. Like they're grounding each other simultaneously.
Yeah, and Eddie will get into that, being like, you can have it one way, but not both. Like one grounds the other, but not vice versa.
Yeah, and AJ said it sounds like Darth just ditched foundationalism in lieu of coherentism. Yeah, in a way, and I don't even know why I would say that, because what Anthony says, epistemology grounds ontology. I thought his arbitrary God grounds everything. Right. So why would Darth waste the oxygen to use the words epistemology grounds ontology and ontology grounds epistemology? Like they're grounding each other.
Say God grounds both.
God grounds both, and you're done. You don't have to be this confusing. Like what in the holy shit is Darth talking about here? Like, let's see how Eddie reacts to that if he even gets a chance.
Yeah, because it's going to continue like this as well. Because the way Darth works, I'm sorry, I'll be quick. It's going to probably end up something similar to the whole his premises, where he'll just probably double down on it. Because if I remember correctly, like literally it's just talking past each other and Eddie saying, no, let me explain why. And Darth being like, no, I'm right.
Yeah, I'm going to school you in this. And Eddie's like, no, I think that you might be insane. Well, Eddie quickly
realizes that he is insane. That Darth is insane.
Yeah.
Cool. But the point I'm trying to make to you is you were using.
That's false.
You never once said that these universal.
I like that. He says that's false. I'm gonna rewind that again. I don't want this to go any. I mean, this one's gonna go for a long time, but
to ground ontology and vice versa, there was need epistemology
to ground ontology and vice versa.
Vice versa, they're reciprocal. But the point I'm trying to make to you is
there's a difference between reciprocity though and a complete and total paradox. If each grounds the other, then you have no point of origin, unless it's like, no, it's perfectly fine for those things to exist in a paradox because God grounds them both. Like I thought they grounded each other. Like at this point, I think Darth just says that if you say that something's grounded by something and it's grounded by God, well, that's two things that ground it, so that's better than just one. Like, is that really what he's doing? Like, this is some like playground logic here. He's not even in the cafeteria anymore, because in the cafeteria you can't talk like this. You'll get your face slapped.
Yeah, but that doesn't make sense because God grounds the thing that's grounding the other thing with God.
Right. Yeah. It makes like you only have the one thing that grounds.
It's like at the end of the day, in Darth's worldview, God grounds everything. So just say that.
Right. This has been a problem when
God grounds both. Boom.
And he doesn't accept this kind of stuff if somebody comes out and says, well, a facts ground other facts. If they're more of a coherentist view, like, the fact that this fruit came from a tree, the tree grounds the fruit, the tree came from the ground. There's lots of facts that ground other facts, right? But for Darth, that's not enough, right? Because ultimately, what's grounding everything is that one last stop. Jesus, right? It's got to be God. Otherwise, everything falls apart. Everything's uncertain. There's an inductive problem. It's just infinity all the way back. It's turtles all the way down. And Darth has a nosebleed and passes out, and then, spends the rest of his life in a nightmare.
Yeah, I think he's trying to get at like epistemology grounds ontology and ontology grounds epistemology. And the fact that they ground each other is, the grounding for that fact is God. But,
Thanks, JL. Darth thinks tyrannosaurs were on the Ark and that radiometric dating is open to interpretation. I don't think we have much to worry about from him. Yeah, he's not. Yeah, he's definitely not going to be winning a Nobel, for science anytime soon. So a Nobel for anything anytime soon. So
using
that's false.
You never once said that these universals exist because they have their origin
Right.
an institution by God. You
Because
never
you
once said that.
didn't let me get to that. You kept asking me.
Exactly. Not only did you not let him get to that eventually, but he already prefaced everything in reality as being dependent upon God, which would include people's capacity to understand things. He started the conversation with that, and Darth is fucking lying to him and everybody in the room, anyone else that's listened, that he's not doing that, he's not affirming God.
He's literally treating Eddie as if he's a non-believer. Yeah, Eddie said right at the start. Yeah, exactly. God is the grounding when Darth sort of first that. Exactly, but I'm getting to that. You asked me, how do I approach somebody that doesn't believe that? And I'm trying to tell you how I approach them.
Yeah, I'm walking them through
It's a
how
step-by-step thing.
Yeah, you have these universals, and this is how, these are inescapable in terms of epistemology. Now that we have them, how do you account for how they exist? That's not an uncommon tack to take, right? That's a common apologetic argument. How do you atheists deal with the existence of universals? Praise has challenged me on this, to which my response has always been, I'm not talking about that with you because you're an illiterate nincompoop who's dangerous. You issue death threats to people online. And I think he's lost at least one channel for hateful content due to that. So yeah. But here they are again, doing this crap. So, and I didn't think Praise was going to hang. Well, I didn't think Darth was going to hang out with Praise because Praise had Smokey Saint on his channel.
Yeah, that's very weird.
But Darth is here.
I'm never going to come on his podcast. I'm never going to talk to this guy again.
Yeah,
this guy is the scumbag.
I mean, to be fair, maybe he just limited it to the YouTube channel. Like, I'll never come on your YouTube channel because you brought Smokey Saint in here. But Smokey's on Clubhouse too, so you're gonna go into Praise's Club. Like, Smokey could just as easily jump into that Clubhouse room. This Darth's he's a tricky one. Oof.
Yeah.
You 20 minutes you didn't get to it.
Because you kept asking me epistemological questions.
Well, do you know when people ask me, how do you ground the law of non-contradiction?
Exactly, JL. Yeah, I do. Yeah, movie Willard. Any 80s movie with a dark basement, that kind of lighting. Yeah.
Wait, Bridge the Divide is JL?
Yeah, Bridge the Divide, that's JL.
Oh, hello, yep. JL. Haven't talked to him in like ages.
I'll say, because everything that exists that's not God is a revelatory action of God, and therefore it reflects the character and nature of God. Since God is the essence of identity and non-contradiction.
But you didn't give me that opportunity. You didn't let me tell you the
why would it take 20 minutes to get to it when you can get to it in 60 seconds?
Darth, listen to me. You kept asking me epistemological questions. You wouldn't.
No, I was asking you ontological. I was asking ontological
You were asking me, how can I explain they exist? That is epistemology.
No, I'm asking you. Listen to me.
Metaphysical grounding.
All right. I gave an ontological answer. Now you see, when I gave you an ontological answer, but how I know.
I don't even understand what they're doing here at this point. Like, an ontological answer versus, like, at this point, like, stop using that as an adjective for any of the shit that you're saying, because it's losing any and all meaning. The fact of the matter is that Darth said that epistemology grounds ontology and ontology grounds epistemology too, right? Not exactly his words, but that's what he said. So he's already established that he believes in something that's paradoxical. And his only way of getting out of that his only defense would be, well, God grounds both those things that ground each other. Neat.
Yeah, you have to get him to that,
right? Because... So he's and Eddie hasn't pushed back on that, to be fair, other than to say that is false. He said that's false twice, and Darth just kept over talking him.
He should have pushed on there, because Darth, with Darth saying I'm giving an ontological answer, Eddie could have fired back. Yeah, well, I was talking about epistemology, and according to you, you need epistemology to ground ontology. So wouldn't we need to do that anyway? But wait. But we need ontology to ground that. It's as much of like a paradox, if it was true, right? Which Darth thinks that is the case. It's as much of a paradox as this sentence is false. Which, remember, this sentence is false is incoherent. So technically, you could draw a line that Darth's little paradox based on the fact that he believes it is incoherent.
It's incoherent, yeah.
Ontology grounding epistemology and vice versa, that's incoherent.
Yeah, per Darth, yeah, according to Darth.
It's circular and incoherent.
Darth wants us to identify the ultimate as something we have to quantify and verify, while he can claim an ultimate that is not quantifiable or detectable. Exactly.
He'll eventually defend that. He'll eventually go into the ultimate. He just needs to shut you down first, Tyler.
Yeah.
Know this, I can say, God made me to think this way, being made in his image. That's an epistemological answer. I just said, how is it that they're universal? What makes it universal? Of course.
But that's not right, though. That's not right.
Okay, we'll get into that in just a second. Randolph says, by saying that he's providing an ontological answer, Darth Dawkins is being metaphorical in his attempt to create a burden of proof for his interlocutor. Possibly, yeah. I think he is trying to do that. But I think it's kind of a weird way of like just sort of like forcing a term or a question into a category that makes it stronger. Like, this is just more of Darth. Like, if I use this adjective or I use these words to describe an assertion I'm making, it's better. It's more. It's harder to defeat because I described it thus and so. Like, if I say ontological, and by ontological I mean it exists necessarily because of God, you can't say it's wrong. You can't refute me or something like that. That seems to be just as sophisticated as Darth is going to get about this, because whatever when somebody says, well, I'm giving you an epistemological answer, or we're talking about epistemology, Darth seems to think, despite the contradiction that he brought up, his paradox, his incoherency, excuse me, that's how he would refer to something like this. Epistemology grounds ontology, yet ontology grounds epistemology. Why is epistemology being treated as somehow subordinate to ontology?
Yeah, if they ground both. Like, if they ground each other, then they're equals.
It shouldn't matter which one Eddie starts with, because each one grounds the other. But so Darth is clearly like, no, there's an ontology and then there's epistemology. There's the stuff that is knowable. There's the stuff that exists, therefore it's knowable. And then there's epistemology, which is how do you know it and how do you know it accurately? I think that's kind of how Darth plays with these, maybe, if he's really making the distinction. So yeah, this idea that like this guy's not... that Eddie's not handling this with handling ontology with the appropriate reference is bullshit, because Darth himself made them co-equal.
Yeah.
All right.
You have to establish.
Did I not ask you?
Did I not
ask you? No, I'm not going to hold on. Did I not ask you? How is it that these universals exist? That was an ontological question. Are you going to use your epistemology to answer the ontological question? Yes, but my question was ontological first and foremost.
Well, you didn't express it well enough, because you were asking me.
I asked you, how is it that these universals
I'll let you,
are real?
Hold on now. I'll let you talk for a minute. I'll let you talk for a few minutes. You kept asking me, how would I prove to the non-believer that these universals exist? That is the existence. So when we talk about things existing, the ontology of it would be how we can account the metaphysical grounding of these. That is not the same thing as asking me how I could prove to a non-believer they exist, because that's an epistemological question.
I didn't ask you the channel by which you came to know about the ontology. I said, how is it that it exists ontologically?
You asked me how I would show an unbeliever that they are universals. That is an epistemological question.
That's interesting. Darth has even forgotten the question he first asked Eddie, and he's just admitted it there.
Yeah.
Because now he's no longer interested. When this started out and they were friendly, he wanted to know Eddie's approach to describing to talking about this topic with non-believers. Now Darth has made this about Eddie.
Yeah, it was just a simple, how do you go about this? Now it's like, you're being an idiot.
Yeah, you're not talking about the ontology, therefore I sniff a heretic. Like, what the like? And Eddie's now had to remind. I think this is the second time that Eddie's had to remind him. This is what you asked me. And Darth's like, no, I asked you about your how do you ground the whatever. Like, if he ever asks anybody like, how do you ground that ontology? You just say, well, it's grounded in my epistemology. Well, how do you ground your epistemology? In my ontology. What's he going to tell you?
And then there's
No.
the fact that he knows the answer as well to how Eddie grounds everything, because Eddie had said it multiple times at the start. God, exactly. I agree with you, Darth. God is that grounding.
Jody, does Dee Dee invoke God before going to the toilet?
Anytime
Hit that. Does he get mad at people for not invoking God before flushing? How necessary is this necessary thing? That's always the question. Yeah, I mean, if Darth can keep it consistent, that he knows that necessary is something it must exist, and it exists in all possible worlds.
I could just picture somebody being like, instead of I need to use the restroom, I'm going to quickly go invoke God.
You can use it for any dirty thing that you have to do, like
just anything in general. Nobody would understand. Like, I'm going to do the dishes. I'm going to quickly go invoke God. I'm going to go take my dog for a walk. I'm going to quickly go invoke God. I'm going to take a sip of water from my water bottle. I'm going to go invoke God.
Instead of me and my partner boning down, it's me and my partner are going to go. We're going to go invoke God. We're invoking God's brains out. Wait, no, hang on. We got to figure out about it. I'm invoking God out of this. I don't know how to do it.
We are invoking God. We are. Us fucking is an invocation of God.
We invoked God all night long.
Oh yeah.
We invoked him.
Yeah.
We invoked God, and we heard back from him 4 times.
Oh man, I made her invoke God so much last night.
Sorry.
She was screaming mine and God's name.
Sorry, fans of the show. I sorry for the tangent. All right, let's make some more ground here.
You answer an ontological question, you have to deploy epistemology. But I didn't ask you what was.
No, that's false. That's false.
Listen, no, it is not false, because ontology and epistemology are reciprocal.
No. You don't have a correct understanding of ontology and epistemology.
Really? So can you have a viable epistemology without an ontology?
Yes, you can.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay, so this is where you're running adrift here. Okay, in order to know things, there has to be an ontology that facilitates that.
You're begging the question.
It amazes me how often Darth does this. Like, the more people keep pointing out his tendency towards question begging, it just brings a smile to my face. But this is so bad. I'm going to keep playing this because I don't think Eddie gets a chance to fully explain what he means here before Darth starts trying to steamroll him. So,
no, it's not begging the question.
It is.
It's just no, it is not. Because listen to me. Can you know something? Okay, if the ontology of God did not exist,
what was that?
Can you know anything at all in a not God world?
No, because this is so fucking cringe, Darth. If your worldview is correct, it's not about whether or not people can know anything. Nothing exists. So no, I can't know anything in a not God world because I'm not there. This is so fucking stupid.
Yes,
I don't know why he's
external instead of an internal critique every time, because again, he believes that is the only worldview.
And Malpass called him out on this like a year or two ago. And he called out Jay Dyer for the same thing. He's like, look, that's not the entailment. The entailment isn't if there's no God, there's nothing for us to know. That's a stupid way of putting it. If there's no God based on your lights, based on your philosophical take, there's nothing at all. There's an absence of anything. So this idea of like, oh, things become unintelligible, things just don't make sense, we can't know truth from fiction. No, there's nothing. The entailment of your God not being there according to your worldview is that there is absolutely nothing else. Not that people aren't going to be able to figure things out.
Because God created everything. God is the grounding of everything's existence. So if God doesn't exist, there's nothing that was created. There's nothing that existed in their worldview. Yeah.
It's just because he's not the only one that does this. That's not unique to Darth. He'll just constantly bring up that kind of claim, and it's like that is not the entailment that's not the entailment that happens from that logically. That's not what you get. That's just childish nonsense. Like, all that is a way of trying to say, like, well, you know what? You can't actually know anything if there isn't a God. So your worldview has to come stop by my place and pick up a God in order for you to be able to assert things are true or false. Like, no, that's no. The whole basis for that is this idea, well, without God, nothing would make sense. No, in your worldview, in its entirety, the entailment is, if your worldview is true and there was no God, then there would be absolutely nothing left. Don't tell someone with another worldview, especially when you're trying to impose your external characteristics onto it, that theirs doesn't work because without a God, they can't know anything one way or the other. That's not the entailment that you want to tell them. What you'd have to tell them is, according to your, like, the worldview that you're telling me is so incoherent, without a God, there wouldn't be anything at all. That's a better way of doing it. It's still irresponsible to do it that way, but at least that follows.
Plus, you'd want to do an internal critique over an external one, because the internal shows the problems in that person's beliefs and thoughts and worldview. And external is just being like, well, your worldview is incoherent from my perspective. And it's like, yeah, but you're not going into my perspective to show me that my worldview is incoherent.
Yeah, Alex, this is the same as when he's like, there's a contradiction in the atheist worldview because God does exist. Those fools. Yeah, that's like, he can't help but do an external critique. He can't concentrate on the worldview. He'll make claims about this other worldview, like, oh, it's inconsistent, it's incoherent, but he can't map out why it is within that worldview. And then when he can't do that, and people are like, why aren't you doing an internal critique? Basically, his response is, well, I don't have to, because the only worldview that's real is God. So it's like, so why did you even start with this from the first one? I can see why he does, because if he's the kind of person that can seriously entertain this goofy entailment, well, without my God, you couldn't know anything. No, without your God, nothing would be around, including me. So that's just beyond the point. That's just a silly thing to say. But when they're trying to say, like, well, the only reason that I wanted to talk about your other worldview is to demonstrate how wrong you are. I'm like, yeah, but that's my worldview. That's my worldview, and it is internally consistent. No, because it lacks God. Well, that's your worldview. No, it's everybody's worldview, silly. There's only one worldview. Then why did you talk about my worldview versus your worldview?
Because it is your worldview. No, it's not. It's like do an internal critique.
It's like, look, either either fucking do an internal critique or stop making this about my worldview versus your worldview. Stop playing with both of them. You need to pick one, because you're contradicting both. Just like epistemology grounds ontology and vice versa. It's paradoxical.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm done ranting.
Well, you're asking me a loaded question.
It's not what is the objectionable premise?
You're asking me a loaded question. Do you believe?
What's a loaded question?
That objective facts exist?
Hold on a second. What is a loaded question?
There's no way I can answer that and give you a proper answer for it.
Eddie, can you give me a definition in one sentence of what a loaded question is?
Yeah, a loaded question is when you phrase it in a way that no matter how I answer it, it's not going to give the proper justification of the.
No, that's not what a loaded question is.
Yes.
No, that you are 100% wrong. A loaded question is a question that contains a premise that is objectionable to the questionee.
No.
Okay.
That's what a loaded.
No, that is not what a loaded question. Let's see. A loaded question has a presumption built into it so that it couldn't be answered without appearing guilty. Not whether or not it contains something that the person being asked finds objectionable. That has nothing to do with the status of a loaded question. A loaded question
is a form of complex question that contains a controversial assumption. Thus, the facts are presupposed by the question, and in this case of an entrapment, because it narrows the response to a single answer, and the fallacy of many questions have been committed with it. Definition.
Yes. That's the definition.
I just had to look that up.
Yeah. He has been told this many times. Many people have told him what a loaded question is, and many people have corrected him, like, no, it has nothing to do with the fact that somebody finds some aspect of the question objectionable. That is horseshit. The idea that the question, have you stopped beating your spouse today? Right? That is a loaded question. The problem with the question is not that I'm offended that you would ask me that. The problem is that no matter how I answer it, I'm guilty. That's why it's a loaded question. You ding dong.
Yeah, because
shit like this.
If you answer no, then that's incentivizing that you're still doing it. If you answered yes, that incentivizes that you did do it, but you stopped.
Yeah, this is the kind of stuff. This is why I hate Darth's mind. Like, his mind does not work well. This kind of stuff, like the fact that he is trying to justify this childish horse shit in the most noxious and toxic way possible, it offends me. I'm offended.
Yeah, well, if you don't like it, Darth, stop watching the movie. Walk away. No, not Darth. Goddamn it! If you don't like it, Darth's little showman show, which, don't tell him that I called him a showman. He takes offense to that. But if you don't like the show, then don't watch the movie, Jeff.
I can't look away, Alastor.
It's one of those things where it's so much of a train wreck that it's just like, we have to watch it.
Yeah.
You need to have your brain cells lost occasionally every day or two. I've
lost more brain cells to Darth than I think to alcohol.
Oh yeah.
I've quit the alcohol. I need to quit Darth, but God damn it, I can't quit.
Darth is an addiction you can't quit.
I just can't quit. Yeah.
If I said to you, have you stopped beating your wife? It has a premise that you are guilty of domestic violence.
Which is exactly
the premise of domestic, and the fact that the person can't answer the question yes or no without appearing guilty of that thing.
That's ironic as hell that he went down that route.
I forgot that he used the exact same example, but it's the one that usually comes up. But yeah, and even then, he's trying to explain it. He's still getting it wrong. It's like, well, it contains the premise. It contains the topic of spousal abuse. Yes, this question has been rated R by the. And well, what the fuck are you talking about, Darth? If you ask that question to somebody, if they answer yes or no, they appear guilty. That's why it's a loaded question, not because it's got something inflammatory in it. You ding dong. DD stands for ding dong, or dum dum.
What you're doing, because you're mixing ontology and epistemology in one question.
What was the objectionable premise in my question?
Mixing
the objectionable. Oh my God.
Ontology and epistemology.
No, sir, that's not telling me that. That's a generalization. Yeah. You didn't.
No, that isn't.
You are objecting, sir. Listen to me. Tell me specifically, what is instead of giving me that generalization, because what you just.
Eddie has gone from a possible friend and Christian ally to just another sir that Darth has to yell at on the internet.
Yep, instead of just nicely talking, it's just like, yep, you're just a heretic. You're just like everybody else, the Catholics, you're Mormons, you're like those idiotic Muslims and atheists.
And thank you, Alex, for this one. If God doesn't exist, how do you account for X, Y, Z? Is loaded in three ways. First, God exists. Second, that X, Y, and Z is real. And third, if it is real, that X, Y, and Z is accountable. Yep.
Yeah.
Perfectly. That's good. That's great.
Said doesn't answer the question. What was the premise that was objectionable that's contained within the question?
You're asking me an ontological question, expecting an epistemological answer.
No.
Yes.
Okay. An ontological answer will require epistemology and vice versa. You cannot have one.
I don't know why Eddie's not hitting him on the head with that more.
I know.
Eddie's seeing that. Like Eddie's being like, you're asking me an ontological question, expecting epistemological answer or something like that. I'm pretty sure that's what he said. And then Darth is like, no, they ground each other, so everything's good. I'm basically asking, either way I ask this, it's asking for basically the same thing. And this is where I'm getting annoyed here, because I get that Eddie's getting irritated, but I really wish he would try to focus that on Darth there.
Yeah.
But he's not. Instead, he's allowing Darth to get away with that while also getting pissed. Like, this is that crosstalk. Darth is saying something that he believes is valid, and Eddie's not trying to call out on that. Eddie's trying to say something completely different. Like, right, you're not going to get through to Darth that is a flaw in what Darth is doing, because Darth believes that they ground each other. So unless if you get Darth to not believe that anymore, or try to explain to Darth why that's not the case, instead of just saying that's false, that's false, that's false, you're not going to get anywhere with this. With telling Darth, you're trying to ask me an ontological question, expecting an epistemological answer.
Michael Deaton, this conversation is a microcosm into Darth's whole social life. Imagine him in kindergarten on the playground getting into this conversation with another kid, and in 5 minutes they're fighting. Yeah. I told you God is the grounding for all being. Punch, punch, punch. Just,
you atheist 5-year-old.
Yeah, you atheist nitwit. I'll get you. You're a heretic. Burn at the stake. Darth's arguments are designed to not just prove to Darth that Darth is always right, but to prove to Darth that everyone else is wrong, to believe other than Darth does. Yeah. This is definitely part of his like narcissistic supply. All right, here we go. A little bit more.
So,
let me hold on. Let me tell you.
Do I know things?
No, let me tell you one.
Do I know things by virtue of God?
Quick lesson in epistemology. I can be an internalist, an externalist. I can be a foundationalist. I can be a probabilist. I can be reformed epistemologist, and I never have to have an ontology for that.
That's false.
No, it's absolute. This is
no. I will tell you why it's false.
That's correct.
That's hilarious. Darth's like, no, that's false. You gotta pick your side. You gotta pick everything. You have to have your epistemology and you have your ontology, and they have to line up because the epistemology grounds the ontology, and the ontology, like, oh my god, like, this is a lot more craziness than I think Eddie was prepared for.
That annoys me because I'm pretty sure Eddie is correct there, because you can have you can think that you know something without knowing the exact origin of the thing.
Yeah,
from
exactly.
my own perspective. So Eddie's correct there. You don't need ontology to ground epistemology, but you need epistemology to ground ontology.
And here we go.
Okay.
I will tell you why it is false.
That is
I will
not
tell
false.
you why it's false.
Okay,
I will tell you why it's false.
Tell me why it's false.
Now, I will tell you why it's false. Okay,
mm-hmm.
It's because any stipulation of intelligibility, okay, is going to require an ultimate reference point. Okay, let me ask you this question: do you believe all propositions are context specific?
All propositions are context. You're going to have to parse that out.
Can you have a proposition that is either actual or intelligible without context?
Can you give me an example? I'm having a hard time.
Any proposition. The dog is in the backyard.
Right.
Okay. The dog is panting. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The paper is white. Any proposition that you want to think of, can you invoke a proposition as actual and intelligible without context?
No.
Okay. Context.
Oh, hang on.
Represents ontology, sir.
Boom. There it is. Okay, that's exactly where I was going to jump in, and I wanted him to say it. Context. He does not believe in context in rhetoric. This makes no sense to me. So if you want to, like, most people, they would think that, okay, if a proposition, does it make sense without context? Okay. No, right? You have to have some kind of context for it, but the context doesn't have to be real. By what he's talking about here, like, well, context just means ontology. That means any work of fiction is derived from reality. Otherwise, it's complete. Or as Darth, I think Darth has actually said, fiction is incoherent, which makes no sense. Like, you can create things that are in context. You can create whole stories. None of it is actually true, and all of it is contextual. And they have, now, if he's trying to say a proposition in some kind of sense, like you're trying to invoke an actual fact about the world, maybe not. But again, what you're trying to do is get to something about facts. That's one aspect of epistemology. There's other things that we can know about that are not facts, but are true It's true that James Bond is a fictional character. Those stories exist. It's true that they exist. Are they actually real? No. So this him leaning into this like, oh, well, that context says ontology. So basically the simple way of putting this is, if you want to say that the dog is in the backyard, that what you just said has no meaning if there isn't actually a dog or there isn't a backyard. Okay, maybe. But that sentence makes sense and is intelligible regardless of whether or not someone's talking about an actual dog in an actual yard. I just don't understand why he's I don't even know what he's trying to do here. This is such a tortured way of thinking about epistemology and ontology. And I don't see how it gets to anything other than like, well, if I show you that, then the only reason that you can say anything about it is because God gave us the dog and God gave us the backyard. Okay, great. Think of what that entails. There is a dead body in the backyard and it was mutilated by somebody. I can't make that proposition without that being a fact, right? It actually has to be the case that there's an actual human body back there who was butchered by another human being, and their remains are in the backyard, an actual backyard. That's contingent upon God.
Yeah.
If everything that you say about and the fact that I'm an atheist is contingent upon God, that's part of God's plan. We're just getting into this whole thing where, like, if you say anything about the world and it happens to be true, quote unquote true, whatever that means, that's God.
Oh, so the atheist thing, it would depend on who you're talking to. I think Darth does believe atheists exist. I know John Lee doesn't, which that was a really, really weird conversation.
Yeah, I don't like the atheists don't exist stance. That's a weird one for me.
Yeah, and that actually, so I'm lying to myself, and then John Lee's just like, oh no, you're not a liar. And it's like, if I'm saying I believe this way, then you're saying I'm wrong, then I'm lying to myself. It's a lot of mumbo jumbos.
Thanks for the encouragement, Bridge the Divine. Thanks, JL. 99 subs to 1,000. Did I pick up? Oh yeah, I did. I did pick up somebody. I saw that notification come through. Spooky had mentioned. He's like, yeah, thanks. Spooky had mentioned at the beginning. He's like, yeah, you're at 900, and I'm like, 900. It was like 890 last time I checked, or 890 some. I was like, I knew it was getting close.
901. So congratulations on that. I wish I could be as successful, but oh well.
Thank you. I really don't know. Like, I got to say, like, that, like, people are like, well, what are you going to do when you get monetized? I'm like, I may not ever monetize, but I
just want it for the community posts. That's all I want it for.
I can already do that. You don't have to be monetized. Yeah, you can. I don't know what
500 then.
I think you got to hit like
I don't know what monetized. That would be nice, but like I at least want to try to get the community posts. But it's just like,
you'd have to look it up, but they lowered that because I thought the same thing too. I'm like, man, I want to do these community posts, and I just ignored it. And then I went back and I'm like, hey, I can post community posts. I don't do it that often, or I don't think I've ever posted one. But when I was looking at it, I was like, oh, they lowered it. So I think it's like 400 subs or something. Like, don't quote me on that. But
because I would like that, because then I can post, because I want to get into Twitch as well, but I want to keep everything together. So it was just that concept of having a community post. I could post if I want to stream something on Twitch instead of YouTube being like, hey, I'm going to be on Twitch here, so I am doing something today. It's just not on the platform you see me on normally. But oh well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so well, no, I'm not going to get into that. It's tangential. Nobody cares about that. That's just me talking about my channel.
Yeah. So. That's more along the lines of like backstage stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's get back into Darth.
Sorry for that random off topic.
Darth is pinhead to Eddie. Darth has emerged out of the hell dimension to torture Eddie here in social media. So we'll get back to that because Eddie is it's becoming clear that not only is he frustrated, but he's rapidly losing his mind.
No, sir, you're wrong.
Yes, it does. Let me show you why. Let me show you why.
Your true theory.
I'm trying to answer you.
Okay,
I'm trying to answer you. I perfectly am well aware with all these varieties of epistemologies. That's unimportent to me. Okay. Now,
go ahead.
Okay. Can anything be actual without God being the final reference point?
Ultimately, no.
Okay. Can any
I gotta post this up. Professor Dan says brought some students along, and then Jeff is on the TV in the dorm. I'm just going to apologize in advance if this is going out to a broader audience. I apologize to you for not because I think I'm doing that. It's not because I don't think I'm doing a good job. It's because I think there might be something better on, or if there's not, I apologize for that. I mean,
anything's better than Darth, but then again, that could be wrong. It's like, again, one of those things where it's like Darth is some of the best entertainment out there, but also the worst.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
anything be intelligible without God being the final reference point?
Why does that doesn't
Ultimately, no.
Okay. So those two questions that I asked you.
see, and Ed, this is where Eddie's kind of weak on this, because as a Christian, he's like, well, yeah, I guess ultimately no, because I believe in God. There's a creator that underpins everything. Blah 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 blah. Right?
Yeah, that's his third or fourth time stating that.
Right, and it doesn't matter. Darth is just gonna keep beating on him like he's like the heretic Darth thinks he is, because he's not, for some reason, giving ontology its due. It's just bonkers.
It's because he's like a normal person that does not think that ontology and epistemology are reciprocals of each other.
Yeah, and therefore he's a heretic. He's like,
I was really surprised that Tone never once unmuted himself to try to back up Darth against Eddie this entire time, because he's just sitting there muted. Because usually Darth's followers at some point would try to get a jab in or something like that occasionally. Or like a little laugh.
Funny that you mentioned that. It's funny that you mentioned that, because Tone, this is not a spoiler, Tone does pipe up at the end.
Oh, well, it's been a hot while since I watched this, so I did not.
And I want to say that Two Cubes does not fail to disappoint. In that,
okay.
Well, I guess he doesn't disappoint in that he provides the kind of feedback one expects from Two Cubes. Oh, and sorry to get back into JL pointed that 1,000 subs and 4,000 hour watch hours per year. I think that's to get monetized. 500 subs for the community tab, 10,000 subs for a store tab. Oh, okay.
God, I have a long way to go. I still have a long way. Only
10,000 subs. I guess I'm never gonna see Jefferson's spatchcock on a mug. Damn it.
God damn it. Listen, okay. If that ever does happen, Jeff, I give you full right to sell the Apple is a Truth shirt. I just want some of the proceedings, because I came up with the idea, okay?
I'm not monetized yet, so I can't afford a lawyer, but I'll let you know. And yeah.
Because I'm just saying that if that ever comes to the case, you can use that merchandise. I would appreciate some of it.
I'm probably going to phrase it even a little dumber too. It's going to be Apples is truth. This is going to have the wrong verb. Apples is truth.
All I'd want is a little bit of the proceedings and a free shirt myself.
Sure. Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah. You get a T-shirt, a mug, and then a gift card to.
Also, full right to use
Garden.
2 Cubes, Tone. Full. We'll have to work things out if that ever happens in the future, but yes.
Actually, I'll just have a special shirt screen printed that just for you that says I called him Tony 2 Cubes, or I called him 2 Cubes first, something like that.
I would love that, like how Tom Rabbit has I'm on Darth's banned list, naughty list.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm perfectly fine, because again, it's you'd more likely reach that than me, so by all means. Darth. Exactly, Darth. Earth atheism.
Darth Whore comes in Earth atheism. What the fuck? Yeah. And again, I got to apologize for Peter, because now it's going to get confusing, because I'll have to call it. I guess I'll call you DW, but yeah, Peter gonna go for it. He had said the same thing. He's like, "What the hell is Earth atheism?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" I didn't even pay attention to the title of the room. Yeah, you'll have to ask Praise about that, DW, because yeah, I guess Earth atheism is what all us atheists believe about the Earth, and then
apparently
there's two groups.
We're a monolith, and remember, I say we're because my options are either I'm an atheist or I don't exist.
Yeah, you're either a young Earth creationist, an old Earth creationist, or you're an Earth atheist.
Those are the three.
that passes for clever and praises mine. So
it's a true trichotomy. Okay, it's a true trichotomy.
yeah, exactly. Someone needs to argue with Tone Look over the universe actually being a tesseract. Don't get him. No, that would shatter.
No.
That would shatter his feeble mind. No, yeah.
No, listen, he already believed that reality itself was just two cubes sitting there. No.
I think the first time you mentioned that, I did bring up the tesseract, and you're like, "Yeah, we're not going to do that. We're not going to talk about that."
Oh gosh.
Here we go.
Ontology and epistemology. Can something be actual without God? So, in other words, all ontology, okay,
whether or not something can be actual without God has nothing to do with whether or not we can know that thing is actual without God. That has nothing to do with it. Like, and he should know better than this, because that's the whole point of a sinner. Like, a sinning atheist is somebody who's like, yeah, or worse, his worst allergy is the agnostic, right? They're like, oh, I don't know. I don't know if that's where things go. I know that there's something out there, but I don't know what would ground it. For Darth, it seems to be like, wait a minute. Like, you know that there's snow on the ground, but you don't understand that snow is given to us by God. How do you even know any of that snow is real? How do you know that those are hands in front of your face right now? Are you even real? This seems to be like the extent of his thinking on this whole thing. So I'm going to keep playing this so he can get through more of this. I have a feeling it's going to get worse.
Whatever ontology we're talking about, the ontology of planets, the ontology of space, the ontology of frogs, okay? Whatever we're talking about, everything depends on God as the ultimate reference point, that it only exists because of God. Now we're going to move to epistemology. Can anything be known whatsoever, truly known, without God being the ultimate reference point?
You just did it again. You moved to epistemology and you asked me an ontological.
That was
yeah. Because again, he's talking about, okay, there's the stuff out there. What grounds it? What makes this stuff actually exist? Can you know any of that stuff relative to whether or not you can, like? And here's the thing: you couldn't know it, right? Because you can't know the extent to which God is other than to just assert that he's ultimate. You can't know to the extent that God makes all other things possible. You're not omniscient, right? So all you have to do is just affirm that there's a God. I asked him this question months ago. It's in my video on, the one that has me on it in Tom Rabbit's video, and I asked him, because he asked me what's my biggest beef with his argument when he starts out, and I said, it doesn't follow for me that you have to assert God referencing facts, that I have to reference God when I reference facts, when you've already stated that facts reference God. It's just a different way of approaching the same thing. So he believes that all facts are contingent upon God. So if I say that the Eiffel Tower stands in Paris, he believes that the only reason that's a fact is because God makes it so. Cool. But if he really does believe that, the fact that whether or not I assert that explicitly doesn't matter. From his worldview, if I say the Eiffel Tower stands in France, I'm implicitly affirming the existence of his God, but he keeps telling people that they're not. Like, no, you can't assert a fact without referencing the God that's responsible for that fact. Like, I already am. It's built into those facts. The facts are references to gods themselves. That's how your worldview works.
Darth said something a while back that I forget now. Did he rant? But there was something specifically wanted to hit. I forget exactly what it was, but he started asking a epistemological question. Okay, I'm going to need to subscribe to Randolph and set that, because that will be entertaining for me.
I'm going to need to set an alarm too, because I don't want to sleep through that. I'm supposed to be on it.
You're literally experiencing what I had to experience when I was just like, I really want to be here for this review. Yes. And you're just like, okay, get up early then. But like, Darth started it epistemologically, and then he made it ontological with a specific word. So I might have to ask you to rewind a little so I can properly nail what that word was, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, let me hang on just a second.
You're not asking your cats if they're using the litter box cat man, you're asking your cats if they're invoking God.
Take it easy, Professor Dan. Thanks for stopping by. He says, good luck from UMass Dartmouth. I would say go X, but I don't know what UMass Dartmouth has. I'm not sure what you guys call yourselves. Hopefully it's not something unoriginal like Bulldogs or something. But thank you. Yeah, thanks for stopping by. Yeah, let me play this. And go. It was just a couple seconds ago.
Known, without God being the ultimate reference point.
You just did it again. You moved to epistemology and you asked
a little
me
bit farther back because he was saying it's when he asked the question to Eddie, and then because you were on like the tail end of that.
Okay.
Whatever we're talking about, everything depends on God as the ultimate reference point, that it only exists because of God. Now we're going to move to epistemology. Can anything be known whatsoever, truly known?
There we go.
Without God being
there we go. That was the word. Truly known. It started somewhat epistemological, but then it's like, can something truly be known instead of can something be known? Because can something be known is epistemology, but then truly you're referencing an origin point. So that's where he turned it into an ontological question instead of an epistemological.
Yeah. Yep.
That was sort of bugging me there. I'm like, I see that. I'm like, yeah, Eddie's right, because originally it was originally an epistemological answer. Can you know anything? But then Darth changed it to truly know anything, and that really made it ontological.
Yep.
I've been researching this stuff a little bit specifically for this.
Okay, that's actually what I thought it was, AJ, because I looked into UMass years ago when I was thinking about going the Amherst campus, not Dartmouth, but the Corsairs. Yeah, Dartmouth Corsairs. All right. Yeah, let's get started.
You just did it again. You moved to epistemology and you asked me an ontological.
That was a question, sir.
No,
He's not disputing that it's not a. He's not disputing it's a question, Darth.
No, Darth wants an answer though. He wants an answer to that exact question instead of him being told he's wrong.
Yeah, I don't want you to tell me that I'm wrong-headed and I'm asking poorly formed questions. I want you to just answer any question I give you. Like, yeah, I'm not gonna do that. Eddie is falling for the same trick that a lot of atheists do. They're intelligent enough that Darth kind of operates like a badly programmed computer, a piece of software, like he can only deal with the initial thing. Like it's presented you crap, and here's the problem right in front of it. You know that you need to go back 3 or 4 more steps to fix fix how we got to this point, and you want to do that, but it won't let you go. No, you need to deal with the shit in front of you. Like, like you have to respond to my question, and then maybe you can wind it back later on.
Possibly if he doesn't ask another question.
Unlike bad software, you can't just kind of like, okay, let me find a patch for that and then go back and stop that chain of BS from happening again. Darth is just going to repeat that.
You can't see the issue, go back into the coding and fix it and make sure that does not work. Although you can, attempt to try to find a way to go back and fix it and instead mess up a bunch of different other things. That's something that's in common with Darth, but you can't go back and fully fix that and pause what Darth is doing.
That's one of the things
Darth
I love.
Wants his answer now.
That's one of the things I love the most about Darth is that his capacity to not just wreck up the one thing, but to get onto tangents and just absolutely wreck up the rest of the place too.
So, just 15-minute tangent later. Okay, Darth, you have legitimately like 50 different things that are wrong with what you just said. You somehow made 5 things 50. You 10 times the issues in what you were saying and in your arguments.
You just moved to
Can anything be known?
Hold on.
Without is God the principium cognoscentia?
Darth, I'll let you talk. Let me talk. Okay.
I want an end. You're evading the question.
No, I'm not. I'm going to explain it to you. All
I want to know is, can anything be known without God being the ultimate reference point?
No.
Okay. So therefore, knowing epistemology depends on God, the ontological basis for everything.
No, that's false.
Oh, so knowing things doesn't ultimately derive and depend upon God?
So you're making the very same mistake I was talking about earlier. If
You're not answering my question.
I was
Listen
waiting
to
for
me.
that.
I'll let you talk.
Yeah.
Let me talk. Listen to me. You said we're going to move to epistemology. And then you said, can things be known without God existing? That's an ontological question.
No, it's a question of both. It's talking about the
Oh,
relationship.
Thank you.
Is there a
conflating.
reciprocal?
No. You just admitted you're conflating ontology and epistemology.
No, I'm not. No, I did
you
not.
You just admitted it. You absolutely
No, I did not. Stop putting words in my mouth, Eddie.
That's exactly. You said it's both.
Eddie, here's the problem.
Did you say it's both?
Okay. Listen to me carefully.
No. I've listened to you long enough.
Eddie,
Did you say
He said they were reciprocal.
Ed, listen to me. Eddie, you're becoming hostile.
Tone,
right, because you won't let me talk.
No,
I love you so much, Tone. Just being the hype
yeah.
man.
He
said this.
But he said it was reciprocal. Yeah, he was wrong, ding dong. Stop. Like, just shut up and sit back down. Like he's like standing up and clenching his fist. But
he said they were reciprocal.
Daddy, Darth doesn't
But Eddie's saying there that it's wrong, and Darth is not letting him fully explain why it's wrong. And anything that Eddie is saying on how it's wrong, Darth is just like, no, you're an idiot.
This is what you wonder if Tone is going to turn to Darth. You want me to hurt the bad man for you, Daddy? Like, I'm just sorry.
I feel like everybody else has Darth, and then I have Tone. Like it's kind of like the thing of like with Kent Hovind, right? Logic did a big thing on like Kent Hovind seminars and like talking about that, trying to debunk that. And then you have like Pelagia with Kent Hovind's son. And then there's this one guy that just is just spewing stuff he heard from Kent Hovind out of his mouth that another YouTuber was like the YouTuber's, I forget his name, but he has like a caveman as his little avatar.
Okay.
But basically, when there was a little skit they did at the start, him and Logic, when they were trying to mess with that one guy, right? He's like, wait, so you get Kent Hovind, Apologia gets his son, and I get this guy? Does this just leave me with debunking this guy? Seriously? And I'm like, that's my boat here. Okay, everybody else is Darth, and then here's me talking to Tone.
Yeah, exactly.
I get
right,
Tone and John Lee.
Go ahead.
I'm saying I get Tone and John Lee. I just start up a freaking like little review thing, and it's not Darth content, it's just Tone Lock.
I'll let you get that whole freaking spiel out.
Eddie,
you won't even
do you
let
understand? Do you understand?
Darth, this is come on,
okay,
Darth.
I'm not conflation.
You're not going to control the conversation. I let you talk. Now you're going to let me talk.
Eddie, you're
Are you going to let me talk? Are you going to let me talk?
Are you going to answer my question?
Are you going to let me talk?
I'll let you talk, but I want you to answer my question instead of dancing around it.
What was your question, Darth?
My question is can anything be known without God being the ontological foundation?
Oh my God. You just did it again. You don't understand the difference between
Can you answer my question, please? Okay, you're not answering the question. You're dodging.
I did answer it. You are literally conflating ontology and epistemology.
Yeah,
that's the answer.
Yep.
Does the Bible say the beginning of knowledge?
I don't care about the Bible. Yeah, no. You're not going to move into the Bible.
Eddie, whoa, are you a Christian?
See, that's why you got to be very careful about when you say things like this, because it doesn't matter that what Eddie means by I don't care about the Bible, meaning I don't want to talk about that. That's irrelevant to what we're talking about now.
That's the way Eddie should have worded that, was the Bible is irrelevant to what we're discussing right now.
Yeah, if he'd been a little...
I don't care about it, because then, that's putting blood in the water. So the sharks are just like, oh, so you're not a Christian.
And just to make Eddie even more insane, consider what's just happened. Tone has already started to become just a little bit tumescent at the fact that now Tone is going to take that literally and start to think that Eddie doesn't really care about that. And and he's following Darth's cue because Darth's like, "Oh, are you even a Christian?" Like this is how little what the when people talk about the absence of charity presence in Darth's mind, this is it. Right? He demands that people meet him more than halfway, 3/4 of the way into his deeply confusing, paradoxical / incoherent, by his lights, incoherent BS about almost everything. We haven't even gotten into his politics, because politics are a nightmare land. Even if you're right wing, Darth's politics are fucked up.
The
But
only somewhat good conversations you can have with Darth are about Apple products.
pretty much, yeah. And even then, it's just like he's such a fanboy that you can't really have a deep one. Because like I like Apple products, but when somebody is like, "Yeah, you can't do this, this, and this," I'll be like, "Yeah, that's horseshit." Like I can concede their failings. I don't know that Darth has ever admitted that, but other than he has admitted that the company is too woke. That seems to be his only issue. Anyway, that's a tangent. The thing here that Darth is really starting to fuck up, and this is really going to make. I mean, it makes me a little nuts, is he's going to ask a question this stupid. "Oh, are you even a Christian?" They started this question 45 minutes ago about their shared view on Christianity, and Eddie prefaced almost everything within the 30 minutes with, "I agree with you completely, Darth. I agree with you completely." Now Darth has gotten to him because of this throwaway comment. Darth is going to, "Oh, are you even a Christian?" He fucking knows better. At this point, he's trolling a fellow Christian. That's all he's doing.
Had enough time to understand that Eddie is that. So it's a very, very dumb question. And the thing is, Tone somewhat was the one that sort of edged that, because the way that Tone works whenever Darth is in the room is he'll not comment unless if it's either to back up Darth or he catches something Darth doesn't, like a trigger word, and then says, like, points that out to Darth. Because that was the thing, because, you know, immediately Tone was the first one. Oh, that doesn't sound Christian. And then Darth being like, "Excuse me, are you even a Christian?" Like, Tone just points that out to Darth. If he just said that, go, Dad, wreck him.
Get the heretic, Daddy. Okay, here we go. Let's watch Eddie start to, you know, the smoke, I think at this point is starting to pour out of his ears. So here we go.
Yes, I absolutely am. But you're asking philosophical questions that have nothing to do with the Bible.
Does the wisdom of God take precedence over human reason?
Oh, Can I add something here? I just want to make a quick statement.
Oh, good.
Just because there's a distinction between epistemology and ontology doesn't mean that there's a separation. Things can be distinct yet not separate at the same time.
What? Fucking Tony 2 Cubes does it again. Knocks it right out of the park. It's distinct, but it's not separate. Like, knock your fucking theology.
Distinct, but it's not distinct.
This is where these guys, like, okay, you were reading a theology book a little while ago. Okay, shake your head real hard. Shake the cobwebs out. That's theology. Don't tack that onto this.
Plus, if they're reciprocals of each other and they ground each other, epistemology and ontology, then they're not really that distinct, because you use one to ground the other and vice versa. Oh, God. It used to be me confused about Darth, but, like, lately it's just, Tone, what are you saying? Oh, my God.
This is truly great. Hang on just a second here.
Tone pulling the brown crayon out of his nose to write that sentence down before he said it out loud. Oh, God, that's so dumb. Like Darth, it's just like, okay, Darth is being an idiot and a clown. But for me specifically with Tone, it's like, excuse me, what did you just say? How are you this dumb?
Mm-hmm. And everybody in the chat's like, "What? Wait, what? It's distinct, but it's not separate." Slap! Stop it with the theology bullshit. Stop superimposing theological horseshit claims onto actual reality. Knock that shit off. Like, I understand that some philosopher whose name you can't pronounce said a fucking deepity 600 years ago. on top of the fact he's a Catholic and you should disavow him, but you don't. That's an entirely separate issue, which really deserves to be explored. But this person makes some weird theological claim about your God and how that pertains to reality, and these guys are walking around, if you think about it, the Trinity makes perfect sense. No, it doesn't. God damn it, it does not make sense. Even the churches asserted that it's a mystery. It is not solvable by man's limited reason, right? But that's one of the many theological things that can be pointed out. They'll just special plead it away and beg the question when they come up with weird arguments. And now Tone is like, oh, like that. How on earth? Oh, like now, see, Tone is actually triggering me to the level that you were talking about. Like, yeah. Eddie, this has nothing to do with
voice.
Yeah, this is
when I was
nothing
talking to him in Clubhouse. When I even pointed that out, I'm like, when I even asked the people that were listening, "Am I crazy or is this guy not making sense?"
Yeah, it's just, and I find this. This has nothing to do with. This does not help either. It doesn't help Eddie. It doesn't help Darth. It does absolutely zero. It does. Well, I can't say it does zero. This harms the conversation as a whole. It just brought it down a level to the point where I don't. Darth doesn't even weigh in on this. Darth doesn't even like. It's not like you're absolutely right there, Tony Two Cubes. Like, my Padawan is correct. How's that, Eddie? He doesn't. It's just Tone says this stuff, and it just like it's a fart in a car.
A random thing. He does not think. He just says. He has one little thought. He says it, and the Darth, like anybody else that's in there, just unless if they're talking to him and are subjected to having to try to have a logical conversation with him, completely ignore him. Like, as you mentioned, like Eddie doesn't like play off that or be like, "Oh, so Darth, do you agree with Tone there?" And the Darth, it's not just like, yes, my Padawan, I agree. Exactly. Let me play off that. No, it's just Tone just randomly said something.
Exactly, yeah. AJ, Jeff, you need to understand that epistemology, ontology, and metaphysics are the triune foundation of philosophy, separate but distinct. Yeah, see that kind of stuff
they
right there, AJ.
They also ground each other.
Even joking, AJ, that's the kind of stuff that's going to make you not my friend anymore. Sorry. Benghazi, I do miss drunk Jeff at times though. Yeah, I don't one should not drink and do YouTube. I learned that the hard way. However, I probably will I have given up on the sauce completely due to physical, mental, emotional, and just tired of trying to drink like I'm still in my 20s or early 30s. But if my health is good, my sanity is good, I'm in a good place. By my birthday on June 25th, I will probably do a casual stream sometime around my birthday, which is end of June, early July. Probably around the 4th of July is when I'll do that. I've got a lot of family members have their dates of birth then. I'll probably do like a 4th of July stream. I'll probably have a couple drinks on it. I will not get trashed. You will not see me take off my shirt. If that's what you're looking for, Benghazi. I promise. Well,
mentally healthy, Jefferson. If you want to be mentally healthy, you might not want to repeat these for a while.
I know. I might have to take a break for a month, the month leading up to the 4th of July, before I do that. But yeah, now that I'm thinking about it, like at that point in the summertime, I will probably have a drink or two. Maybe I'll do a stream, a casual one for America's birthday. But yeah, I will not be getting trashed, and I will hopefully not be passing out and snoring. There was one time that I was up really late at night, and I can't remember if I probably was drinking. I was drinking and I fell asleep, and I started snoring right after somebody asked a question in a live stream, and my brother can attest to it. He's like, somebody asked a question. It was a really long one, and it went quiet. No one could understand. It was a difficult question. No one really knew what was going on. And he's like, and all of a sudden we hear you like a buzzsaw coming up over your mic. You just started snoring. He's like, and the timing was perfect. I'm like, yeah, I wish I could remember that. I was no longer there.
Also, you're not getting any money out of Bill, because he's like, I'm not sending any super chat money till I hear Darth say something intelligent. That's never going to happen.
Yeah.
That's never going to happen. Darth has the voice and the logic of somebody you want to slap. But Antonio just has, he's the type of voice that you want to strangle. and his logic makes you want to question existence itself.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Bond is Jefferson. We need to get trashed at the end of June. My birthday. Yeah, mine's right around that time, and it's right around 4th of July. If I'm healthy, Bond, I think is a big vino fan. I think he likes the red wine specifically. I used to be a big red wine drinker, so that might be actually what I'll probably have a glass of red wine in and around my birthday around the 4th of July just to celebrate. I'm going to try to stay away from anything harder than wine. So, yeah, and. I missed Cloud Season. Well, now you're definitely not getting 10,000 subs. Yeah, I mean, not on this one. If I continued to do the kind of routines I was doing like a year and a half ago, a year ago, OnlyFans maybe for me, but probably not YouTube. YouTube would have hurt.
I mean, literally, I had a thing where I was just like, okay, 100 subs leg reveal. It happened. Somebody literally subscribed just so that they get a leg and foot reveal. And I'm like, okay, here's my foot, here's my leg. You're welcome.
Yeah, what Jody is, I got knocked down, but I could have a guitar. That's never going to keep me down. If you see me singing along to Chumbawamba, call medical services for me on my behalf because that would be I would have to be 4 sheets to the wind.
If I'm ever in a stream or just watching and you happen to start singing there, I'll either tell you or text, "Are you okay?"
Yeah, if you hear me, if I break into song, I'm drunk. Or break into tears, I'm drunk. Not to say that I'm like a manly man, but I mean, I'm capable of breaking into song and crying without alcohol. But if I'm just spontaneously doing it while I'm live, yeah, I'm probably on something.
At some point we should have like some type of just little like who is worse out of all of Darth's minions, like who is most like Darth, who is less like Darth, who could be their own like group of idiocy.
I actually think that J. Robin is worse than Darth now.
J. Robin is way more kinder than Darth, but yeah,
I think he used to be. He definitely used to be, but the way that I've seen him behave around other people, ever since he got like, and maybe I'm making the wrong connection, but ever since he got like banned from, was it Talk Heathen? Skeptic Generation. He got banned from them because they talked with him 4 or 5 times on their show, and then they were like, we're not taking any more calls from him. It seems like he got extra triggered, and the fact that I haven't seen him around in a while, I thought maybe something medically was happening to him because every time I heard him talking to anybody, it sounded like he was about ready to have a stroke or something. Like he was super triggered all the time. The last one I remembered that he did was a morning Clubhouse thing. I remember because I was working and I was listening in on it. And somebody the title was "Crushing Atheists in the Morning" or something like that. I guess
it's always those like titles that they have. Oh, hello. Oh no. Oh.
Hello.
Are you back? I think you're back.
Yeah, my headset lost connection for a little bit.
Okay. I'm like, well, I guess I'm the host now. Jefferson Spatchcock channel is now mine.
It did knock down my volume or something. Something's not right with that.
Because it's like everything was still running smoothly, just you were gone.
There it
goes. So like, well, it's time for me to review that.
This the headset that I've got's got one of those dongles, and I shifted it and I touched it, and I think that USB port might be getting loose. It lost connection. So yeah, it's okay. And because
I was so confused.
because of this busted ass laptop, that it doesn't detect a camera when it loses that feed, it kicks me out. It doesn't detect either, so I have to unmute and basically rejoin my own thing. Yeah, it's a pain in the ass. I really got to get this thing swapped out.
You randomly disappearing and me being the solo host kind of just like screwed up my train of thought. So
yeah, I can't remember what you were talking about either. Sorry about that.
I don't know what I was talking about something, and then it's just like, oh crap! Well, this channel's mine now.
Stop fiddling with your dongle; you'll go blind. Yeah, sorry. I don't want to end up like Tony Two Cubes there. All right, let's play out the rest of see if we can get to the end of this. I think we've got what? We've got about 5 minutes to go.
Yeah, roughly.
Then you don't know anything about epistemology and ontology.
Okay. Well, first of all, saying that they are, do you understand when I say that they're reciprocal? Do you understand what I mean by that?
What I understand by that is you're trying to conflate the two, and you're
No.
not letting me answer them on each ground.
No. So you don't understand what I mean.
So what you've demonstrated is you don't know
just told you
anything about the difference
Okay.
between
You're
ontology
not,
and epistemology.
you're talking me past me. You're giving me an evaluation, which I don't accept. You're not
Right, 'cause you
responding
keep
to what I'm
conflating.
saying.
You're making a
Okay.
complaint.
Does the scripture say
I
the
don't. We're not
beginning
talking
of
about
knowledge?
scripture. We're talking about epistemology and ontology.
Right.
Stick
The
to the
Bible,
topic.
the Bible
Stick
talks
to the
about
topic.
these
The Bible
things.
doesn't have anything to do with the distinction. Stick to the topic.
Of course it does.
No, it doesn't.
It does
No,
not. Does not. The
That's
Bible,
a red herring. That's a red
does
herring.
not
Has
the
nothing
Bible-
to do
You know.
with the
You know what?
distinction between.
Eddie. You're
Hey,
now acting.
tell me where in the Bible.
You're,
Tell me where in the
Eddie,
Bible
Dude,
it
you
says
need to
now
chill out,
acting,
man.
You're now acting like an unbeliever.
I don't care. That doesn't matter to me,
You're
Darth.
That's only fair, Darth. You've been treating him like one for the past half hour. So why shouldn't he? He's got nothing to lose.
He's been getting interrogated by Darth as if he was an atheist. So why not? You're acting like an unbeliever. Well, you're treating me like one, sir.
Crazy.
Eddie, you're unhinged right now.
Yeah, no, because one, you won't let me talk.
I will.
Darth, bro, this is why everybody talks so much shit about you, because you won't let people talk.
I do.
You want to control the conversation.
And you want to dodge my question.
I'm not dodging nothing. Is epistemology and ontology in the Bible?
Okay. The Bible speaks.
Is epistemology and answer my question? Don't dodge.
Yes, it is referred to indirectly.
Oh, really? Where is epistemology and ontology distinction in the Bible?
In the book of Proverbs, it says, "The beginning of knowledge is the fear of the Lord."
Does it say ontology and epistemology?
Okay.
I want to quickly hit on this here. Oh my gosh. Because I have a decent amount of say stuff here. This is them being hypocrites, which that's one thing that I really, really hate about. But like, that's one of my pet peeves. I really dislike people who are like when they're being hypocrites. And they literally, like, it's this double standard hypocrite bullcrap that's annoying me. Because, at that point, Eddie's trying to hit them with what they hit, like, people like you and me with, like if we were to bring up the flood, where in the Bible does it say that there were children, blah, 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 like that. And then they get angry at us when, it's just like, just because it doesn't say it in the Bible, if that's the case, doesn't mean that it's not the case. It's right. Kind of implied. And then Eddie's doing that same, where does it mention ontology and epistemology in the Bible? And then Darth is doing the same thing. That he gets angry that atheists and agnostics do. That's hypocritical as hell, and it's double standard. So I'm genuinely getting annoyed with this. I could not let that slide.
Yeah,
I had to point that out. That's double standards there. Oh, you can't imply things from the Bible, but since I'm a Christian and I'm Darth, I'm dumb. I can.
Yeah. Well, because he can read it in context, and I don't know if he believes, like, either he's just so big-brained that he can get it right, or because the Holy Spirit's guiding him. It's whichever crazy assertion he wants to make, because we know he's not big-brained.
Yeah, and that's not implying ontology at all. That's just implying that God is an origin of everything, when ontology itself is just like sort of the philosophical study of origins of things.
Yeah.
It's not the same thing. Because the Bible's making an ontological inference, but it's not. You get what I'm saying here? I think I'm wording it not as well, but it's not the actual word ontology. It's just like an ontological inference, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think I know what you're going for. Anytime this like kind of appeal happens where like the Bible refers to everything, like if you look for anything about anything, it's in the Bible. You just have to know how to look, and
there's
like
its opposite too.
Yeah,
There's a verse for one thing and a verse for the opposite of that thing.
And I think that that's actually kind of a dangerous thing. Like this is the kind of stupidity that you get from like pastors with crap educations and stuff. You get this from their kind of like, especially in like Protestant denominations and stuff. Like if you look in the Bible, you'll find your answer. Or somebody will say something as dumb like a G-man. Read your Bible and do what it says. No, that's not how you're supposed to read the Bible at all. That's not. It's not a book it's not an instruction manual. It's not even one book. It's a compendium of different books with different genres and different messages compiled
with different authors that get events completely different from each other.
Yeah, it's completely like these guys disrespect the Bible when they talk about it that way. And when Darth is trying to say, well, they imply ontology and epistemology, I'm like, no. Epistemology and ontology, when it's dealt with by churches, that's usually always being dealt with in the confines of theology, and it is separate from what you get out of special revelation. At no point is the word ontology or epistemology used anywhere in the Bible. They're not even dealing with that because those are philosophical things that happen. Either those terms were coined later, and the concepts existed outside. Like a lot of that stuff in terms of philosophical thought is happening in cultures that weren't Christian per se. At least not ones that Darth would be comfortable with. Like he gets kind of pissed off when people, like at least I've heard him do this, where they try to bring in something like Hellenistic ideas into things, which I think is hilarious because he believes that your body has to die so that your soul can be separated from the poisonous meat bag that needs to be turned into mulch, so it can achieve its glory with God in heaven. It's like that's a Hellenistic idea. Paul didn't preach that idea. I don't know how to break it to Darth. Paul told people that their body, you would be physically resurrected, you would join Jesus. We would be made perfect. He did not believe in this. Your soul leaves your body and goes up if you're good and descends down if you're bad. That's a Greek idea, amongst other cultures. That wasn't Paul's notion of it. And Darth doesn't get that because Darth reads the Bible as a book. He doesn't read the Bible as a compendium of books and letters that have differences and contradictions and issues all their own. So, yeah, I agree. It does tick me off when he comes back with something that goofy, because Eddie's not asking an unfair question. Like, are these words used there? Are these concepts referred to in the Bible?
Yeah,
no, they're not.
I'm just more ticked off because they do that same thing to other people. Like when people make those claims, where does it say in the Bible that this happened? Well, it's kind of implied. No. Where does it say the exact word? And then they're like that's what they do eventually sometimes with some of the conversations. And then Eddie's kind of doing the same thing. And then they're getting ticked off at him for doing it and being like, oh, it implies this. And it's like, you're doing the thing that you don't want other people to do when they're trying to reference something in the Bible.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's finish this out. I did want to highlight, I see praise as a premiere about Calvinist heretics, so I'll wait to see what One Way and Vec will say about it. It doesn't matter. Like, I think they think it's just all fun and games. It's really fucked up over there, but between those guys. So, because praise used to do these things like beat up a Calvinist or Calvinist beat down Saturdays or something like that, and One Way and Vec would show up for a chuckle. It was just, and I think that was back when praise was a Unitarian. I don't think he's a Unitarian now. It's so cringe.
I'm not sure if I muted myself accidentally or when I muted myself, but oh well.
I didn't remember. I didn't mute you, so
yeah. So I must have randomly hit the mute button. You did hear everything I had to say, right? I think.
Yeah, if you muted yourself, it was while I was talking. So
okay, so it must have been I might have randomly hit the mute button immediately after I finished my rant.
Yeah.
Okay.
Does it say ontology and epistemology?
Listen, really, are we going to listen? You
Does
need
it say
to listen. You know what?
Does it say the Trinity in the Bible, dude? Does it say the Trinity?
Does
it? Shut up.
You know what?
Does it say the word Trinity in the Bible? Come on, man.
Shut up, man. He doesn't need any help. Just shut up.
Thank you.
Oh, you're not
Does
making
it
any
say-
sense, dude. My gosh.
I just removed him from the room. Okay.
because he went after why? Because he tried to put Tony Two Cubes in his place.
Like nothing that Tone said was of substance at all to the conversation. And then instead of having just Darth, the person having a conversation with, yell at him, he's now having a random ass person yell at him too.
If an atheist had interjected the way Two Cubes did there, he would have gotten kicked by Darth.
Yeah, if an atheist or a Christian that was not exactly the way Darth and was picking Eddie's side, if anybody tried to pick Eddie's side, Darth would have been like, "You can't do that. Shut up." Like, you can't do that. Sorry.
Yeah.
But and again, in Tone, Tony Two Cubes, he's more of the type of person that does that more than Darth to me, with that hypocrisy stuff of, point exactly where this is that. Where does it say that exactly in the Bible? So hearing him say that just ticks me off more, because I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah, exactly.
He's the one that does that more than Darth. He's the one that says, point in the exact thing. That's ridiculous.
Yep, they're assholes. Here we go.
They are. They're idiotic assholes.
He's totally unhinged because he's being significantly challenged. Okay?
He's unhinged because he's not being significantly challenged. He's unhinged because he's starting to reach the conclusion that you are significantly challenged.
He's unhinged because you don't let him fully get his point, and then he tries to make a point on anything, and you're just like, just shut up. It's like, I'm Darth, I'm talking, and even if you're saying you're not letting me finish, no, I am, even though I'm over talking you. And here's this question that I've apparently been asking you this entire time, even though that wasn't the case. I started off asking you something completely different. You say I'm wrong. I won't let you explain why I'm wrong. I'm right. I'm Darth.
Yeah.
And then Tone, yeah, Dad, you're right.
Oh.
He is supremely ticked off because he's being challenged on something that he doesn't have an answer for. Okay? Now, under no circumstances did I conflate ontology with epistemology. Okay?
You said they ground each other.
You did.
In almost every opportunity to open your mouth, you did. You even said that they ground one another equally.
And vice versa.
And then implied and then acted as if while saying that they ground each other, you acted as if epistemology is somehow second order to ontology. Like everything that he was saying, like even his example, like, can you make a proposition without context? Like, well, the proposition actually grounds the context. So how's that, Darth? There's a dog in the yard. I spoke the proposition, and because epistemology grounds context, I can know that there are dogs in backyards. I'm going to speak the words, there is a dog in the backyard. Epistemology grounds ontology. There is now a dog in my backyard. That's got to work according to Darth's worldview, right? I don't know that I'm being unfair. Maybe I am. I'm losing my mind.
No,
I'm triggered.
No.
All right.
No, you're right. I agree with you there.
What I said is they each depend upon each other. Now,
yeah, they're interdependent. They're not.
Let me ask you this, Praise. If I say that ontology and epistemology,
I just realized that Tone said another idiotic
they depend
thing.
upon each other.
What did he just say there? Hang on, let me rewind it real quick.
That ontology and epistemology,
they're not.
Let me ask you this, Praise. If I say now,
yeah, they're interdependent. They're not.
Let me ask you this, Praise.
They're independent yet not separate.
That ontology upon each. Okay.
That makes no sense.
What I said is they each depend upon each other. Now,
yeah, they're independent. They're not.
Let me ask you this, Praise. If I say that,
but now Darth, right now Darth is changing his claim though, right? Like all he's saying is that they're like, if you're just trying to say they're connected, fine. That's not what his claim was.
Also later, Jay.
Yeah, take it easy, Jay. Yeah, I said goodbye to. He's going to watch Reacher on Amazon Prime. Check that show out, folks. It's got a big beefy guy playing Reacher, not that tiny little Tom Cruise guy that played him in the movie. Even though the first movie is good. Really enjoyed Reacher. The first movie was pretty good. Second movie, absolute waste of time. Total trash. Well, hopefully the show is good. Haven't watched it. I've been watching Raised by Wolves, which is fucking great.
I forgot how many times Tone Lock chimes in here.
I think he does.
I personally lose more brain cells every time he opens his mouth than Darth does.
It's staggering, isn't it? There have been times Tone has said things that have been so frustratingly stupid that have almost caught myself like starting to drool a little out of one side of my mouth. Like he actually induced a little bit of a palsy.
Where you straight up were like, "What the hell?"
Yeah, you just you know, it's like
I literally mean 2 cubes.
He's such a but this thing like, well, they're independent, but they're also they're
independent, but they're not separated.
Like
if they're not separated in one, then they're not independent. They're dependent on each other.
So it's not the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. It's Jesus, ontology, epistemology. That's their Holy Trinity.
Exactly. And remember, they're all indifferent, but they're not separate.
Jack Reacher 2, How I Met Your Mother. Pretty much, yeah.
Ontology and epistemology are reciprocal. They depend upon each other.
But you said they grounded one another.
How is that conflating
No, you didn't.
The two?
You said that they grounded one another. Like you literally, like what the fuck? Like, first of all, you didn't say that they're like this reciprocal thing is just horseshit, right? But the idea that you said that epistemology grounds ontology and vice versa, that's a different claim than, like, I don't know what reciprocal even means. Like, I don't know what that's supposed to be. If by reciprocal all he means is that they ground each other, which hopefully that's what he's doing, then yeah, then he's being consistent there. But this like separate but not distinct but not separate crap is like Trinitarian hand waving for issues involving the Trinity being brought into an issue about philosophical concepts. That's unnecessary. The fact that
bearing or binding each of two parties equally, or given, felt, or done in return. So I think he's trying to go along the first definition of they're binded equally to each other.
But if they're binded equally to each other because they're grounded in God, they do not then also ground each other. You can't say that they're both reciprocal in the fact that they're bounded by something like a God, which is consistent with what Darth has been putting out there, and then make the statement that Darth made to Eddie, which is epistemology grounds ontology and vice versa. Those are two separate things now. So Darth contradicted himself. Or he was lying.
Yeah, but that's not new.
Yeah.
And you'll notice how when I brought up the scripture that says the beginning of knowledge is the fear of the Lord, this guy, Eddie, who claims to be a Christian, becomes unhinged and says, I don't care what the Bible says.
You took it literally,
I don't.
Not the implications.
And that is not at all what he said. That's not what he meant by that, and that's not what he's. That's not even
later mentioned that it was that Darth was using a red herring. He got into it more later, being like, that's a red herring. The Bible has nothing to do with epistemology and ontology.
Exactly. Yep.
The Bible speaks about everything, but not everything in specificity. It will address everything, sometimes in specificity and sometimes indirectly in principle. So this is an extremely common reaction that even certain believers have to the point of view that I'm presenting, which is a position that Van Til holds to. That when Van Til talks about ontology and epistemology, he talks about the starting point, the method, and the conclusion are all involved with one another.
I actually kind of agree with Darth here that Van Til does do that. It's something that I just Jedi John Piper, who popped up in one of my streams a couple times ago, but he was talking about we've talked about that, and he's pretty good at pointing out what Darth and crew get wrong about some of the things that Van Til talks about in terms of how they presuppose things and what they mean by presuppositions and worldviews and stuff like that. But this is one thing where I think that Darth actually gets kind of correct, because Van Til's Van Til trafficked in this kind of conflation of epistemology and ontology. He gives a defense for God. It's about 1 page long. I read it like 3 times. And every time I read it, with each time my mouth dropped a little bit more, because it is the kind of like insane assertion that you'd expect from someone like Darth Dawkins, where you basically lay out you assert a definition for a deity where you literally tell people it is all of this good stuff, but none of the bad stuff. It can do this, but it never means it does that. It's always good. Sure, that could mean that there's an absence of his good, and that would imply evil, but that's not God's evil. So, he's contingent upon every fact, but not a fact you disagree with. It's just fucking nuts. I'm really overgeneralizing it, and I'm probably not making it make any sense. I'd have to read it in order to really illustrate how bad it is. But it is this claim of just such it's really just a bad philosopher's attempt at using lots of words to do what a little kid does. I love you this much times infinity, and spreads their arms as wide as possible. That's literally how he asserts this God. And then by that, he's like, and because it's that, it's unassailable. That's all Van Til does. He defines a God into existence, uses language that he believes makes it unassailable, concludes that it therefore is unassailable, and then challenges Christians to come get him. That's all as far as I'm concerned, that's all I've gotten so far out of anything that I've read from him directly. And the more I read from like Bonson is basically doing the same thing, except they basically jump into some philosophical mode so that they can kind of sneak behind what they think are enemy lines and fuck with people's heads. But ultimately, they're going to run right back to the Van Til presupposition, the Van Til assertion. This is God. He's this big times infinity, and you can't touch him. And then they stick their tongues out, and that's it. And then stick their fingers in their ears because they're not going to listen to any objections. That's kind of Christian apologetics, I think, in a nutshell, generally. But all right, let's play out the last of this.
Van Til was also accused of conflating ontology and epistemology
because he was.
This is categorically
was.
false. It just simply means is ontology epistemology, how we can truly know things, cannot be disassociated or disconnected of how it actually exists in the world from God, right?
Epistemology actually exists in the world? That's interesting.
Huh.
This is a guy that says that fiction's is incoherent. But epistemology is something that exists in the world.
I did not know that an idea / just concept on its own, like a concept created from the mind, is actual reality.
Yeah,
huh.
That's interesting. Like I'm going to rewind.
I would love to look at and see, and if it talks to me, talk to epistemology. That would be very, very nice.
Yeah,
have a nice conversation with Dr. Epistemology.
Know things.
Yeah.
Cannot be disassociated or disconnected of how it actually exists in the world from God.
Oh, okay.
Right?
He's not talking about it. I think at that point, I think what he's talking about. So, and again, that doesn't make sense. That's not what somebody's doing with it. I think what he's saying is like you couldn't talk about something that doesn't exist in the. Yes, you can talk about things that don't exist because you can talk about hypotheticals.
That's what he was talking about. You could talk about hypotheticals. Fiction itself does not really properly exist in the world besides somebody saying, "Oh, this happened." So you can talk about fiction.
So yeah, okay. I probably jumped the gun. Yeah, he's not. I don't think he's talking about epistemology existing as an actual thing. He's just talking about like how you can know about things that actually exist. But there's plenty of things that people know about that don't actually exist.
That and the fact of I only jumped on there because I was more focused on reading the chat than paying attention to that there.
That's
so
fine.
I'm just like, wait, did he say that? Plus, there's the fact of I completely forgot that Tone would chime in a good amount of times with nothing of any substance.
It's been great
in this video because it's been a while since I looked at it, and I'm like, so I was kind of caught off guard. So you got my basic genuine reaction because I know like where everything is going, but the actual wording of everything I forgot. So you're getting my general reaction of what the hell. Yeah, so I want to check that. Okay, but yeah, there is hypotheticals. There is fiction.
Yeah,
and we can't invoke God as the creator, as the ontological basis, unless there's a way which God makes us to know of his existence. So Eddie is completely unhinged. Okay, he's like somebody, but you know what's Interesting. Did you get that, Tom Rabbit?
Yes, Eddie's unhinged because he knows the difference between ontology and epistemology, and he's not chasing Darth Dawkins down this this. I mean,
Down this rabbit hole.
Yeah, Darth has turned he's turned ontology and epistemology into an Ouroboros. That snake eating its own tail.
Ouroboros.
What'd you say? Ouroboros?
It's Ouroboros.
Ouroboros, excuse me. I always mispronounce that. That is how I heard it pronounced on I think I heard it pronounced that way on an episode of the X-Files, and I've been pronouncing it wrong ever since. Yeah.
Okay. Another thing about me there is because I was on stage occasionally with JL and Xerxes, and even though I'm not a big science nerd, but I know myths and monsters and more of the mythologies better. So and plus I also like correcting occasionally.
No, that's fine. Yeah, if I'm getting it wrong, because
so
all this time
I'm pretty sure you said that wrong. So I'm it's Ouroboros, not Ouroboros. I'm pretty sure that Ouroboros is the correct pronunciation. I could be wrong.
I'm actually trying to think of was it an episode of the X-Files or Millennium? I want to say it was some show like that, and somebody pronounced it that way, and I've been assuming that's the way it's been all my life. So thanks, Ouroboros. Try to make sure I don't get it wrong again.
Yeah, that's the correct way. Ouroboros. It's everything's W, Ouroboros. And it's Z, not an S at the end. It's it's.
This is interesting. If God is perfect and God created everything that is not God, then God made things less perfect by creating other things. So the act of creating other things would make God less than perfect. Maybe.
Possibly.
Yeah, Eddie is unhinged. What happened to being aligned with the mind of God to ground his worldview? Yeah, and again, great point, Tyler. And that was sort of the point, right? The first, and I kind of left that out. If you do happen to be interested, if you are interested in this, if this kind of kicked up some dopamine and you want to see the whole thing, watch the original hour. It's like an hour, maybe a little bit more than an hour. The first 30 minutes of it, these guys are in complete agreement. Darth and Eddie are in total agreement with each other. Eddie says multiple times, totally agree with you, right on the same page with you, Darth. Attaboy, Darth. I don't think he actually ever says that part, but but you get the picture. And then when they get into this, where he's pushing back on Darth, conflating epistemology and ontology together, Darth's not having it. And so to the point where Darth then starts getting it. And I don't think I pointed out as many times in this video. I don't think that you or me, Alastor, actually got to as many times. I think that Darth was being implicitly dishonest with Eddie. I don't think we caught them all. But the time when he turns around and says, "This is what I asked you," and Eddie's like, "No, you asked me how I would go about explaining this to people." I think Darth did that twice. That was one lie, and then by the time he gets to the point where he's talking about that shit where Eddie says the thing about no, I don't care about the Bible, right? Obviously, charitable take on that is that what he's talking about is the Bible is irrelevant for this topic of the conversation, and he took
it literally and was dishonest and said, "Oh, so you don't care at all about anything this has to say? Oh, so are you sure you're a Christian?"
Right, and then after that, he even sums up the conversation a little bit by going back to that. Well, he said he didn't even he said he didn't care about the Bible. That's not what he meant, and you damn well know better. At least you better. See, that's the thing too, because these guys will play dumb. Oh, you better spell it out to me. You were the one that can infer ontology and epistemology from the Bible, but you couldn't pick up on the nuance of what Eddie was putting down. Now all of a sudden, I've got to lay it out for you in crayons and shit. That's the infuriating thing about these ding dongs. It's just that fucking crappy level of dishonesty. It's I know you know how to do this because you just did it 5 minutes ago, and now you're fucking playing dumb. And if you're doing it to get a reaction out of people, you're being a troll. And God doesn't like liars. Liars, Darth, are worse than child molesters. And you lied to Eddie at least twice in the course of that conversation. And you lied to other people about what he said.
Because remember, compulsive liars are the liars that are worse than child molesters.
Well, not only did he but he mischaracterized what Eddie said twice. But the last one with the Bible thing, not only did he mischaracterize it, Tone followed suit. And then when he was talking to the rest of the people after he'd kicked Eddie out, he's basically doubling down and telling everybody that Eddie didn't care about the Bible, when that's not what Eddie meant when he said that. So he lied to Eddie, he lied about Eddie, and then did it again.
Yeah.
So he's consistently lying about Eddie now,
Yeah,
which
he's
makes
a compulsive liar, which again,
he's
according
violating
to
the
him is
yeah.
one of the worst things possible you could do.
It's a capital offense according to Darth Dawkins. He should be sent to the chair of the
Yeah, God dang Gary lying.
I said, when is Jefferson going to finish up so I can go live? I'm finishing up right now. We're wrapping this up right now because we're just under 3 hours. This is way too long. So, Alastor, thanks for joining me on this.
Anytime, I'd gladly be up for any more. If any others interest me or you just want another person to talk to, I can let you know. If another one heavily interests me, I have a lot to say. And if not, I might just occasionally come into some of your side things that you have after and just chat there.
Yeah, I'm thinking about I'm thinking about starting to do after shows. Maybe not immediately after the videos, but maybe on other days. If it's like a heated one and I get a lot of comments about it and people are interested in joining in a different broadcast, or maybe even one that's like maybe not broadcast but recorded in advance and then premiered, I can do like an after show afterward. I was talking with my brother about that. That way I can do the commentary ones that I do and keep them to about an hour 90 minutes, and then they're short and
then
sweet.
There's these ones where you have you and a host playing off of each other and it goes to almost 3 hours.
That to me doesn't matter because this is one of those weekend streams. So, but yeah, I do want to cap it because one of these ones I did, I think I went I think that one with J Robin and me and Tom, that was over 4, and I did one on the weekend that took over 5. So, and that one may have just been me.
Yeah, I'm always down for coming up anyway with anything. In fact, I used to try to occasionally again come up with JL and Xerxes, and now I kind of miss that, hearing other people's thoughts. That's why I've been trying to get into Clubhouse more, because the stages aren't done really at all, because I asked Xerxes and he's like, well, the stages are now locked to the server instead of being publicized, so that's why they don't mess with that there, because they're just still getting the same people. So
yeah,
that's why I'm like, it might I might at least stop by to watch you and Randolph, because it's that same thing that I kind of miss myself being up there. Just at least I can see other people up there talking and discussing with people coming in, bringing in their cases as if it's like, atheist experience talk heathen style thing where people bring their cases and it's like, okay, let's discuss this now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you got somebody to kind of bounce ideas off of.
I'm down anytime. Of course, if there's a specific one that I like, I might be like, I kind like, as before, I kind of really want to be on this one.
No, that's fine. Usually, because I'm covering Tom's comment, it's usually Tom's stuff that I'm covering first. When I'm doing that, he's only done it twice, and I'm 3 times, I think. And the 3rd time I missed him. But if he throws his hand up, like he'll usually DM me on Discord. He's like, hey, that video of mine that you're going to cover, do you want me to join? I kind of feel like, I have to give him priority because I'm covering his shit. So it's like, if he's going to come in, it's like, all right, you're coming in. At that point, like the only time I'd probably say no to people is if like, I'm going to limit it, because it's like, if we're going to do a commentary thing.
So something like that then, in a sense, where if I see like a reminder and I kind of want to get in, I can ask, and then it's a yes or no.
Yeah, it's kind of, because if it's going to be like, if I do a commentary on one of his videos, it's probably going to be an hour to 90 minutes. If Tom and I are in there, it's probably like, I mean, you and I were doing this 30-minute one, it took 3 hours. So if the more people you bring in, the longer it's going to take. And it's like, and I've watched those. My brother and I did them back when we first started, and it would be like 6 of us getting in there trying to do commentary, and we were pausing it every 10 seconds. It was like, okay, we're never making it through. We're not even doing the commentary. And then we'd start talking about like, what's streaming, or what's our favorite movie, or, why is Tone
backstage
why
stuff, usually.
Or even not backstage. Like we just end up talking for 25 minutes about why Tone Loc is so stupid.
I could go on. I could have like a full 24 hours about that.
Yeah.
Apparently, he's now my specialty out of Darth and his minions now. So.
We all need to be a whisperer to one of these guys. It's sort of like an adopt a whale kind of pro. I don't know if anybody remembers that from the late 80s, early 90s. That's your whale.
Tone is my little plot of land in Germany that I'm now lord of.
All right. With that, folks, we are going to get out of here. Thank you again, Alastor. Thanks, everybody in the live chat. Thanks for your commentary, your jokes. It's always fun. And we will get out of here. Like, subscribe, do all that kind of stuff, share, or flag and hate. Do whatever you got to do. But yeah, have a great day or night or whatever it is you're doing. Take care.
Yep. Hope you all enjoyed. Take care.